Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 287, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube right now. If you guys are listening after the fact, make sure to join us on Wednesdays. It's 8 o'clock right now. We try to do it between 7:30, closer to 8 o'clock, depending on the schedules of everyone. And we've got a returning guest. Mike Dieter is in the house. He brought some special cigars. And we have another special guest coming on for just a few moments to talk to us about what you brought, which is the Espinosa Murcielago de Oro, which is a TAA exclusive. And we're going to have special guests from Espinosa Cigars to tell us a little bit about that blend. Before we do that, I do want to thank our sponsors. Mike, thanks for being here, obviously, and bringing those cigars. I want to thank also Tinder Box at Easton, where we're kind of based out of in Columbus, Ohio. They do carry the Espinosa line, not the Murcielago de Oro. This is one that you're going to have to find when you can, if you can. And hopefully we'll see it another time once they're all out here. I know this has been a big hit. But Tinder Box at Easton has the original Murcielago as well as an exclusive. The BS Silver is made by Espinosa Cigars for us. And a whole line of Espinosa cigars. Also, we want to thank Altadis USA. They were on last week, and we had a great episode with Travis and Charlie. So we appreciate their support continuing this year. And usually for the second featured cigar every week, check out their brands such as Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, H. Upman, and Aging Room. Check them out. Got a big portfolio. And like I said, the BS Cigar Company, we've got the silver made by Espinosa, and the gold is made by Placencia. So check them out. Available at Tinder Box at Easton, or they can be mailed to you. You guys want some swag like I've got on, like Nate's got on. I've got the BS 3/4, perfect for this time of the year in the fall in the Midwest. And then Nate's got the black shirt, the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. That's the podcast shirt, available on buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. And if you guys would like, obviously, to support the show, we appreciate that. Not only sharing, liking, commenting, reviewing, and subscribing on everything, but also you can do patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. See Tyler backstage making some gestures there. We're going to have to bring him on sooner than later. He's getting antsy. Patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. He's been drinking. Or Venmo at Bourbon and BS for the one-time contribution. If you want to help us out, want to support us by getting a bottle or whatever you'd like to do, we appreciate the financial support. Obviously helps us each week to do this for you guys and get everyone on the feed. Let's just bring him on so we can let him get back to his night. We've got Tyler Jones.
Steak's getting cold.
He didn't eat steak. He's at a steakhouse. He ate a salad.
Listen, my diet is important to me and stuff like that, so happy to help out whenever I can, but I just don't appreciate the judgment on my food choice. You know.
Are you calling us from the bathroom just so it's quiet, or did you have to?
Yeah, hallway.
Oh, that's not the bathroom. All right.
No, this is the outside area. As you walk into the beautiful Circle Center Mall here in downtown Indianapolis, this is kind of the entry. You got a Panera Bread right there. You got a Weber Grill, and then you got my spot over here. It's Tony's Steakhouse. Right.
Tony's Steakhouse, downtown Indianapolis, correct? So, yeah, shout out. Go there. Can you smoke on the patio or anywhere? Or
yeah, you actually can. They have a nice outside enclosed patio where you can smoke and stuff like that. And they have cigar ashtrays out there, not cigarette ashtrays, so that's nice. So, yeah, this is a nice little weekend hangout spot for me. Everybody that works there is phenomenal, so and the food's great, so you can't go wrong at all.
Fantastic. All right, so Tyler,
to talk about my Indianapolis food reviews. I think we were talking about a little TAA action, a little Murcielago de Oro.
So, yeah, we got the Murcielago de Oro. This was something Mike has brought with him. Obviously, Mike's a huge Espinosa fan. And this is something that he shared with me, actually, when they first came out. You brought it to Columbus, Ohio. Tinder Box is not a TAA account. I don't know of many TAA accounts in the Columbus area, if any.
There is zero in the Columbus area. The closest thing would be in Cleveland, Cousins Cigars,
okay,
I believe.
Okay.
And I think that's the only TA in the state of Ohio, I believe. Like in the state of Michigan, there is zero. Indiana, there's one down in Evansville, which is southern Indiana, damn near like Kentucky, Louisville, and all that stuff. So, actually, I think it's close to Tennessee as well. And then in the Chicago area, you've got Ewan Reese, downtown Chicago. You've got Up-Down Cigars, downtown Chicago, which both of them do carry Murcielago de Oro. Then you've got Newman's Cigars and More up in Libertyville and their other location, Long Grove. And then in Wisconsin, you've got Metro Cigars, which is outside of Milwaukee. And then you have Tasting Room, which is in Monona, which is right outside Madison. So those are in the Midwest for the most part. Those are like the only TAA accounts. So I don't have a ton, but it's a super exclusive product made exclusively for them. And the blend is absolutely phenomenal. It's been a huge hit for our first TAA product so far in our company's history. So we're very excited about this blend.
Well, give us a little bit of information. Like I said, I don't want to keep you on your night off, if you will, down.
You're good. Nah,
but this
no
is
off, no breaks.
This is like we said, the Murcielago de Oro. It's a TAA exclusive. That's Tobacconists Association of America. And you'll see some familiarities on this product that you do on the original Murcielago here, which you can't see very well since I'm small on the screen. But instead of the kind of holographic silver that the original Murcielago has, this is going to be in a nice gold look to it. Same band, same secondary band. What's interesting about this is a Toro, not like the box press Toro that I'm holding with the Murcielago. This is going to be a 6.5 or 6x54 as opposed to the 6x52 Murcielago box press, and also an oval size. So that's a little bit of a snapshot. What do we got? What are we smoking here, Tyler?
So the Murcielago de Oro, like you said, it's got that nice 6x54 oval shape. You know, we had a very popular cigar come out at the beginning of this year called Knuckle Sandwich 55, which shared the same oval shape. And we were very happy with the way that cigar turned out. And so we were thinking about making something special with our TA blend. And we're like, well, let's go back to the oval size. I mean, I think that's something that's hot right now, something that AJ has the molds for, and that's who we make the Murcielago de Oro through, AJ Fernandez, along with the normal Murcielago. And honestly, the blend's phenomenal. You know, Mexican Claro wrapper, so not the Mexican it's not the Mexican San Andrés Maduro traditional wrapper that you find on the normal Murcielago, but it's the nice Claro variation of it where it's a lot lighter. Same wrapper, just a different priming and different shade of the aging that went into it. And the binders and fillers are all Nicaraguan, and but they're all significantly different than the normal Murcielago. This one's going to be a lot more medium, super unique profile. There's not too many people using that Mexican Claro wrapper. Luckily, we've got our connections with AJ that kind of helps us with that. And if you're familiar with Foundation Cigars, the Olmec Claro, that's the same wrapper that they use on that. I believe it might be the same wrapper that AJ uses on the New World Dorado, which I love that cigar. I have an affinity for that cigar, so I think it's actually the same wrapper that he uses on that as well. So it's a wrapper that's getting a little bit more pub right now, and we're one of the first companies to use it along with those other brands that I just mentioned. And it's something that we're really feeling like it's super unique to the market, and we really want to do something special for our first TAA exclusive. And we felt like this blend was a great representation of it. So, and according to our fans, and I know you spoke to before, Steve, and everybody is ranting and raving about this blend a lot. So it's been a huge hit.
Yeah, you said it's similar but a completely different blend than the Murcielago, start to finish, basically.
Correct, absolutely.
Wrapper to filler.
Yes.
Interesting. And the oval shape, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like a soft box press, but it's not as square as it is a little bit like they call it an oval for a reason. It's almost like a little bit of like a rectangular shape, if you will, a little wider than it is tall, but it's got that soft box press to it. It's very
love handles.
It's got love handles, apparently. The old muffin top.
I like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't tell AJ or Eric we said that, please.
Hopefully they're not
Nate
watching.
said that.
I think Eric would be more upset the fact that you brought me on versus texting him saying, "Hey, Eric, can you come on and talk about this cigar?" So, I appreciate you contacting me.
I'm trying to keep you significant. That's all I got to say,
And thank you again for including me last week in the primer dinner. That was a great time.
Absolutely. In fact, Mike here was the last purchase of that the prefix sampler. So
Thank you, my friend. It's good seeing you, Mike.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, they also did a knuckle sandwich prefix. It's like a 9-count, 3, 3, and 3 of the Connecticut, the Habano and the Maduro in a special size as well. Kind of an oval press in that one as well, if I'm not mistaken. Figurado or no?
It's a 5x50 Figurado, but the Maduro is box pressed. But the Habano and the Connecticut are both round.
They're round.
And,
I got you.
You may have thought the Maduro kind of had more of that oval shape, which it very may well.
Yeah.
I just haven't looked at it because they've been flying off the shelf. They've been flying, so I haven't had enough time to look at it because everywhere I go, they're already sold out. So
all right,
I'm excited for it.
You got to get it while you can. Same with this. Anything else you want to tell us about this cigar while we have you, and then we can let you get back to your beverage of choice and hopefully some good company. Better than
great company as always. But you guys are just equally as great. But no, I think I gave everything I know on the blend and stuff like that. We're very happy with the way it turned out as a company, and we look forward to next year and next TAA edition, which will not be the same cigar. So stay on the lookout for that.
Well, we have a request here that not only that Knuckle Sandwich 55 become a regular release cigar, but also this one. So I'm not holding you to anything or asking you to say anything, but this is something hopefully you guys can get your hands on if you find it, because you may not be able to smoke this again. Sometimes I know TAAs and other limited editions are, if there's enough tobacco, it's a good kind of a test market for some blends. And I know that we just had a guest on. Who was it that was going to do that? I forget. But I know La Imperiosa for Crowned Heads became, or was the Las Calaveras became the La Imperiosa.
That was, West Tampa.
We just talked. That's right. I was trying to think.
The Attic series is where they're going to try out new stuff.
And now that's a West Tampa Red. So we're crossing our fingers that some of these limited ones that you guys are putting out are going to find their way to the masses coming up here.
Well, luckily you got some phone numbers in your phone, Steve, that you can text and maybe be a little bit more persuasive than me, type deal. So
we just got to beg.
The other day, you guys are the ones that are buying these cigar stuff. If you tell them you'll buy them, they'll probably make them. So.
And that goes for you guys out there too that smoke these cigars and enjoy them. If you like them, there's plenty of contact through social media to the, like, for example, Espinosa Cigars on social media. You got Tyler Jones. You've got Eric Espinosa has his own page as well. If you know who Hector is, he's also a good one to reach out. Don't badger him, but definitely let him know that you're loving this stuff and that you'd buy more if they were regular releases. So, Tyler, I appreciate it. Do you guys have anything else for Tyler while we have him?
Please bring the 55 back, Tyler. Please.
I'll run up the chain, Mike.
All right, Nate, anything?
No, I'm good.
All right. Tyler, thank you very much. Cheers. Enjoy your evening, brother.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a great night, fellas.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, guys. What do you guys think of this cigar? I know, Mike, I believe you're a fan because you wanted to bring it on the show.
This is, I would say, definitely my new top 5, in my top 5 for sure.
Top
Absolutely.
5. Why? What do you like about it so much?
So, fun fact, I know we're getting into the Murcielago, the original, later.
Mm-hmm.
So the original Murcielago was the cigar that got me hooked into this whole space in the first place. So Espinosa as a brand, I've always loved a couple of specific things about them. Number one, the pepperiness to it, I've always been a fan of. They typically have a little bit more of the stronger side on cigars, which I appreciate too as well. The construction has always been on par with every Espinosa I've had, from the quality of the draw to the construction, just overall, even flavor. With this one in particular, I like that it's not as intense as the original Murcielago, but it still has that pepperiness to it, just like the original does. The flavor is completely different, and it's just overall, I know Tyler said it's a little bit more on the medium side, but by the time I get to the final third, is usually when it hits me pretty hard.
Does it?
Yeah, at least for me. So for a medium-bodied cigar, I would say it's relatively strong for medium-bodied, in my opinion.
I'd say it's medium plus as you get through it. The one time I smoked it. Nate, this is your first time smoking. What are you thinking of the Murcielago de Oro?
So when Tyler said that it was medium, I was like, really? Like, maybe compared to the regular Murcielago, this has got some balls to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe it's not necessarily the body, because early on into it, hard to pick up the body of the cigar, but the flavor is extremely intense.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pin down what the flavors are that I'm getting because this is my first one. But it's definitely a lot different than why is my mic so darn. But yeah, it's definitely different.
You're all jacked up there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the phone, nice and.
No. When I looked at the settings, it wasn't moving at all. So.
Never mind.
But no, the regular Murcielago's got like a lot more like dark chocolate, coffee or espresso notes, like the black coffee notes to it. This is completely different. So I'm still trying to pin down what those are.
And it still has a little of a punch in the retrohale. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much black pepper in there, but more like the baking spices, I think, in the retrohale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Some
definitely. Cumin. I love the oval press. Those that haven't had any of the ovals, I know the San Lotano oval, I think, is only online now.
It could be.
Yeah, it's something that AJ Fernandez had kind of brought out a while back with the San Lotano oval. And then last I knew that there was that kind of went to an online exclusive as opposed to brick and mortar. So it's nice to be able to smoke something with this shape. It sounds silly for those, especially that aren't cigar smokers that are listening at this point of the show. It's comfortable. it's kind of like a mouthpiece. You know what I mean? Like it's not a box press. It's not round. Not saying that smoking cigars are uncomfortable. I know it sounds lame to most people that don't smoke cigars regularly, but it truly is. It's kind of a more natural shape, to the mouth. So it's almost like a mouthpiece, like a scuba type of a,
like a snorkel.
Like a snorkel. Yeah. They don't make that like a block. It's more like a little bit of this oval shape. And so this actually,
well, your mouth is oval. So
there you go. But it's interesting that more people haven't done that, but it's a nice cigar. The construction is great. This is, I think, my second one, thanks to Mike, that I am smoking. And it's a toned down version of the Murcielago, but it's, as Tyler said, this is a completely different cigar. This is a line extension. The original Murcielago isn't even the one that we have on the table. This is the current original. There was another one before that, and another one before that. So the first one was when Eric Espinosa was working with Eddie Ortega, and that was with EO, and it was a slightly different blend, right? It was still San Andreas heavy, but that was a very popular one. After the split, and Eric kind of went off on his own and was doing his own reverse engineering of cigars. One was the Murcielago. The one before this didn't have a silver band on it. It had a red band on it. If you've seen that, Mike, I know you kind of, I don't know if you know all the history behind that.
So I've seen the one with the red band. So this one right here with the holographic band, that's the one I tried. I've seen the red band. I've always wanted to try one, but good luck finding it now.
Yeah, it's hard to find, and if you do find it, it's going to be kind of like a shop that doesn't know they have it. I know for a while there, I think it was Party Source, not too far from us in the Cincinnati area, that they had some, and they were like, this is a couple years back, right?
Yeah,
so this is a couple years back. This was after this one had come out, and I think one of my customers was like, "Yeah, I found these down there." It was like $6 a pop or something like that.
Yeah, back then they were
getting rid of it, right? But that was made at the Lozona factory. That was Eric trying to reproduce the original, and then this is a collaborative effort with AJ Fernandez, who has his hands on. Apparently, the story I heard was that Eric and the team, like Hector, they weren't happy with the quantity or even the quality of the San Andreas wrapper that they're trying to use on this, that they were able to secure get their hands on for them to do it. So teaming up with AJ, like they've done with the 601 and several other projects, this is one that AJ Fernandez has his hands on a lot of tobacco. And so this made it, I guess it's more reasonable to have a consistent product. And that's one of the reasons I think it's been so popular this time around. And they wanted to go a little away from the red band and the red boxes when he re-released it, I think in an effort to kind of be open with the consumers and say, this is the Murcielago project, but I'm not trying to basically package the same way around a new blend, which I can appreciate that openness and honest kind of a response to the consumers and saying, hey, this is what we want to do. This is where we see the Murcielago, but we're doing it differently. We're doing it a little bit bigger, better, and more consistent for you. So that's what you're looking at now. And then with this one here, the De Oro, completely different, even though you have the Mexican tobacco on the outside and Nicaraguan tobacco on the inside, but it smokes very, very different. This is, it's weird for me to smoking some other Espinosa products, because like with the other Espinosa products, I'm trying to think of like a medium plus cigar that he puts out that I would put this even close to. Can you guys think of anything?
No, not like this.
I
no.
think it's unique.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. The flavors on it, it's got a lot of toastiness to it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wood notes on it. A lot more your food flavors.
Yeah.
On it. Yeah, it's so unique. That's why I'm having a hard time coming up with what am I tasting. It's a very, very unique blend.
There's some wicked bugs in the garage this time of year, man. We might get dive bombed by one of these bugs here. They're starting to show up in numbers.
I think that one. I think that one's a pterodactyl.
Yeah, baby. So that's, guys, if you haven't had this cigar, I would definitely check it out if you can find it. You can do a search, I think, not only online, for this, and see if you can find it. Because, like I said, I think some of the TAA accounts do have online presence. Some of the big boys.
How does a shop become a TAA account?
You contact the Tobacconist Association of America, and you basically register and get approved. I don't know. I thought there was some sort of a sponsorship that you had to have from either another shop or manufacturer. I think that's how it works. I think it still is how it works. It did at one time, to my knowledge. Do you know the answers to this, or you just
no? I was asking. The last I had heard was like you had to carry like a certain percentage of offerings from the accounts that are from the manufacturers that are TAA manufacturers. So I think there's a lot of shops. Tyler was saying how few there are in the Midwest. I think there's a lot of shops that would qualify. They just don't want to go through the effort to actually do it. And
so there's that side of it that you do obviously have. You can't, they want you to buy the products they're putting out. And that's, this is Espinosa Cigars' first release now that they're part of the TAA. Like I said, my understanding was you do, as a retailer, you get sponsored. I think it's by either another shop and or a manufacturer to say that basically you would be able to fulfill your side of it financially. There's also the side of it that last I knew, and I haven't looked into this in the last year or two, but when I first got in the industry with Brian at the Tinder Box, was you also have to go to the TAA show at least every other year.
Yeah.
So that was another commitment, that not only are you committing to an annual fee to support the organization, you're also committing to buying cigars from however many. I don't know if it has to be all. There was like 12 to 15 last I looked. There might be more than that now. But there's also the commitment that you have to basically attend the show. And that's not always easy to do. I mean, in our industry, the cigar industry, you've got the TAA, which is smaller, the PCA, which is bigger, the Premium Cigar Association. They are starting to do more PCA exclusives to kind of push people to come to the show and purchase those things and obviously be a part of the PCA. And all these organizations, they do support the industry through lobbyists and legislation efforts to try to keep this industry, I guess, healthy in a sense of being able to do what we do, and obviously not only enjoy cigars, but also have the retail side of it, and then obviously the manufacturer side of it. So there's a lot that goes into it. But the ability to go to different trade shows, as a lot of the cigar brick and mortars, they're small operations.
Yeah.
So to be able to like basically not only the owner or someone from that shop leave the store once a year to go to a trade show and also keep the store running, now you're asking for another one to do a 3 or 4 day excursion to, whether it be, I think last year's was in Mexico. I mean, it's like, these are trips that it sounds great to people, like, well, why wouldn't you do that? Well, you're also trying to run a business, and most of them are very, very small.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the shops are very small. They're not going to be these huge ones you think of online, or if you go even to a cigar lounge, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like where, Tyler wasn't at a cigar lounge tonight, but I know he frequents them in Indianapolis, and I know you go there to some of those like Burn and Blaine's. Yeah. These are those things where it's like you're running that business, and imagine if you like also had to like keep the store open, or if you're going to close the shop down just so you can go to these shows. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, one of the shops I used to work at, they actually closed the shop for the week that the owners were on vacation. They closed the shop for a week.
That's tough to do, but
because they just didn't have. I mean, they didn't have enough staff to be able to work there. Every day, open and close. Tinder Box having 6 staff members. I mean, that's a lot for a cigar shop in our area.
Yeah, Tinder Box at Easton. I mean, we have Brian, the owner, which he's basically always has to be available because he owns the place. Yeah, myself, and then you have Josh, who's full time. So you basically have 3 full-time workers, and we have 3 or 4 part-timers. It's tough to do basically a business that's open 7 days a week, let alone basically 6 of the days you're open first thing in the morning, almost 10 o'clock till 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
the first shop I worked at, there was really only 2 people that worked at the store. There was me and the GM. The owner didn't even work at the store,
right?
Which everyone was happy about that.
All right.
So when the GM would take a vacation, I took a vacation that same week just to be able to cover some of his shifts.
Your vacation at your other job.
I took a vacation at my main job to be able to cover his shifts.
Right. All right, back to the cigar. Anything else you guys have on this? I mean, I'm getting to not quite halfway through it.
A little bit more than halfway through mine. Yeah, but same.
I'm getting there.
It was already medium. I will say that it almost is kind of mellowing a little bit more. It's balancing out for me. There's not as much of a punch to it like when I first lit it up. Like, Nate, you had even said when you first lit it and you're hearing Tyler say this is medium, you're like, wait a second,
it's front loaded a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
So in my experience, I think this is probably with this one, I probably had about a dozen of them now. I will say right off the get-go, the pepper just smacks you right in the face. Decently strong in the beginning. It does tend to mellow out and the flavor comes out a little bit more toward the middle. It's the final third, in my experience, is where the strength really comes in.
It builds up on you.
Yeah.
It's funny with the Murcielago, with the packaging on this and like kind of an aggressive, the bats on there, you got on the original, you got this like kind of holographic silver, and the boxes aren't too crazy. The boxes are that traditional wood with obviously the bat and Murcielago on there, but it's not.
Dioro is different.
What does the Dioro look like?
It's got almost like these 2 like eyes. It's like these really like angled eyes on it that it's completely different.
Really?
So because I think the Murcielago box is a lighter wood color.
Lighter wood, yeah. It's just like any of the ones we have in
Yeah, so the Dioro is all black box, similar to like the Azulejo and the Oscuro, but it's got like this, it's like a matte finish on it too. It's not glossy like the other ones. And there's like this face that's on the cover of it that's completely different. I think it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It's really, there you go. Almost looks like cat eyes almost.
Yeah, it does. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just looked it up too. That's cool. It's cool box.
It's a real nice box you got there.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, when it comes to the regular Murcielago, they're just like the Batman cigar.
See that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do say that. I don't know if you see it.
And at first, when I was looking at the comments, I was like, "Are we getting spammed?" And I was like, "Oh wait, is that your wife,
Marissa?" Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, you just see a comment that says, "Hi, babe," and I'm like, "Is this going to be a spam?" Then I click on the profile, like, "Oh no, that's Mike in the background."
I was kind of waiting. I was kind of waiting to see if she was going to hop on or not.
Well, there she is. Hello, Marissa. Hey, Kevin King, John Gibson, Corey Davis, Mark Jeremias. That's Kristen's Nana as well on there.
Oh,
she's on every week. Yeah.
There you
Love
go.
having her on from
All
the
right.
Chicago area as well. But yeah, it's what I was saying about this with the packaging on this and the red one. If you've seen the boxes of the previous version of the
I never saw
Murcielago,
the box. Just
really kind of cool, kind of like opened up. They were kind of offset as far as that, but it opened up both ways on the top of the box. It was bright red.
That's
It
awesome.
really stood out. It was a cool box, but I think it went more traditional with this packaging. And this is just in my head. I'm not saying it's bad packaging by any means, but the way this thing smokes as more of a delicate blend. It's almost like that, especially with that box with those eyes, very aggressive. And then you smoke this thing. It's almost like it smokes more like a very traditional. There you go. There's a picture of that. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
That was really nice.
That's a cool box.
Showing Mike the red box. It's tough to see on there. I wish we could zoom in on this thing, but it smokes I'm going to say this, it's not talking down about the original Murcielago. This smokes like a higher end cigar for me.
A little smoother.
Yeah.
Smooth. This smokes
smooth.
like it way above its price point, which was, how much did you purchase these for?
These ones were just, what was it, 12,
Yeah.
almost $13 a stick.
Yeah. MSRP, I think, is $12.50 on this thing.
Wow.
And I think it smokes like probably something pushing 20.
Yeah.
The way it's
100%.
balanced, the way the flavors are, I think it just grabs me as more of a kind of an every person's, but almost like they could make this blend, even though it does say, San Andres or Mexican Claro. It's just like, I can picture more of a traditional look. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe even one of like Espinosa bands, where it's that very intricate, or like the Laranja band or something like that. Yeah. Not saying it takes away. It's just, this is kind of just thinking out loud here.
The concept kind of reminds me similar to last week's cigar, the Monte Cristo Diamante, where it's a tweak on another blend. It's a little bit lighter than that blend, but it does come at a higher price point. And, this is still half the price of what that cigar is, but this smokes like a higher end cigar.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does. And again, not talking down about the Murcielago, it's just, that's more of an in-your-face type of blend, where this is, and that does kind of remind me of like what we talked about last week with the 1935 anniversary Monte Cristo versus the Diamante edition.
Yeah.
And we had the Aging Room Sonata we smoked. Remember that?
Yep.
That's kind of the same project from, not same, but similar type of a project.
Yeah.
So they might be onto something here. I really like this cigar. I think it does smoke way above its kind of price point so far.
Yeah.
Kind of to your point, where you're talking about how it looks more like aggressive, but it doesn't smoke like it. I mean, for someone that's walking into a humidor, maybe they've tried more mild blends, or looking at it and it appears that it could look a lot like something they typically smoke that isn't necessarily strong. It's kind of like that in between.
Yeah.
It's intense, but at the same time, it's a lot more mellow, like other cigars too as well. So when it comes to the aggressive marketing on the box and stuff like that, it kind of makes sense to someone that maybe isn't accustomed to the rest of the Espinosa brand, maybe. No,
I think that's absolutely accurate. But this is one that if I had the band on it and I went to, say, like our sponsor, like a Monte Cristo smoker or whatever, they almost would, I think there might be this, so like, no, I don't want to smoke that thing with a big bat on it. It's I think it's more of, if I took the band off of this and I handed it to someone that smokes more medium, maybe medium plus, brands like Monte Cristo, or I'm trying to think, like even Padrones, smokers like that. If I came to them and like, what do you think of this one? And I pull out the box and it's got the big eyes on it, and they open it up and it's got this bat on it. Like, I'm good.
Maybe the gold was to kind of give it some more elegance to it or something.
I think it does. I mean, again, you look at the two of them back to back or up against each other.
Very different.
Very different presentation. You're right. The gold is more subtle. They didn't do the holographic or anything like that.
I think they should come out with a holographic red, like the retro style.
Who knows? They might.
That would be cool.
All right. So what are we drinking, Nate? I'm surprised when I was looking. I had to look it up on the podcast, and I didn't think we had done this brand.
No, we haven't. So this is Templeton Rye. This is their 6-year. They do a 4, 6, and 10-year rye. There's been a lot of controversy about this brand over the years. So going back in their history, originally it was a rye made in Templeton, Iowa, during Prohibition. It was real popular in some of the speakeasies in that Midwest part of the U.S. It was rumored to be Al Capone's drink of choice, the old, during Prohibition, the Templeton Rye.
Really?
They started distributing outside of Iowa beginning in 2007. Now, the issue is they got sued because it's not made in Iowa.
It never was?
What?
Since 2007.
This stuff has, since Prohibition, like it hasn't been made as what we know of Templeton Rye nowadays.
Yeah.
It's not made in Iowa. They used the original bottle had their original TR logo on
I've
it.
seen that.
Yeah, that's what the bottles used to look like.
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago. No,
Okay.
they changed the packaging within the last few years.
Okay.
The reason they got sued is it made it first. They made it seem like it was coming from Iowa, but it wasn't. This is actually MGP.
Indiana.
It's a 95.5 rye mash bill that MGP does for a lot of other companies. So they had to add that it was distilled in Indiana on the back of the label.
Makes sense.
And if you also notice, nowhere on it, all it says is Templeton Rye. It doesn't say anywhere on the bottle straight rye whiskey.
Mike, you can hand me the bottle.
So-
I'll take a look at this.
The issue was that they were trying to match the flavor of the Prohibition era rye. And so they were adding things to it to acquire that taste.
Huh.
So because it doesn't say straight rye whiskey, up to 2.5% of the volume can be additives without them labeling it as such.
Really?
So technically, you can consider it a flavored whiskey, but because it doesn't exceed that 2.5% by volume, they don't have to put that on the label.
Interesting.
So when I say flavored, it's not like Jim Beam peach or vanilla.
No.
Insert your food or flavor. Yeah, so they redesigned the bottle and the labeling as part of a settlement for that lawsuit back in 2016.
Who were they sued by? Did it say?
Some money hungry lawyers, and then people who
The
had
competition?
people who had bought it between 2006 and that lawsuit were able to be reimbursed for that because it was considered deceptive marketing practices. It's kind of like, Tito's on their label says handmade. I'm sorry, when you sell 11 million cases of vodka in a year, that's not handmade. Someone in a warehouse pushing a button does not constitute handmade. But
yeah, you read this and it's very hard to read because it's clear, dark colors on this back label.
mm-hmm.
It says produced and bottled by Templeton Rye Spirits, LLC, Templeton, Iowa. Then it says distilled in Indiana with U.S. and imported grains,
Mm-hmm.
imported packaging. And that's all it says. Small town, strong spirit on the neck. It says aged for a minimum of 6 years in charred new American oak barrels. And that's all it says on there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of the story that they had been pushing out there, about it being the Prohibition era or Prohibition style rye whiskey, it was all bullshit. And, they got caught for that. And so since then, they've had to make those changes, but their marketing team's done a great job. And, they've
Caught my eye.
Yeah, they've been successful. They've been able to, still grow the brand. They do have distillery operations that started in 2018. So they're probably working on getting their own stuff. But as of this moment, they are sourcing.
Yeah. Which, we've talked about before, putting MGP out in the wild as far as, the information. That's not a bad thing, in my opinion. We've talked about that, how MGP obviously has some of the best, especially ryes.
Oh, yeah.
Products. That's definitely something that I can see being
that
a strength.
Yeah. That rye grain can be expensive to
Mm-hmm.
get a hold of because, it doesn't grow in the same type of climate that corn or, barley does. So it can be an expensive one to get your hands on. So,
And a 6-year rye. I mean, you look at that. I was surprised at the price point of this bottle. I know you know what it is, Nate.
$34.99
For the 4-year.
Okay.
$39 for this. But I still think that's a very reasonable price point for a 6-year rye.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. No, it is.
What are you guys getting from this when you're sipping on it?
A lot of spice on the finish,
A lot of
and
spice.
it hangs. Like that finish definitely hangs, but There's quite a bit of vanilla up front.
Vanilla, and I think a little bit of it's not apple, but I feel there's some fruit there.
Mhm.
Some kind of fruit.
There's definitely fruit in the front end.
But it's definitely got some spice. And it
Quickly transitions to spice.
No, apple's pretty accurate. I think.
You think it's
Steve.
apple?
I think apple's fair.
Think it's apple?
Which apple? We need to get Laurel on here. Did she? Would she have like an apple diary or something like that as a book that she was making?
Golden Delicious.
Golden Delicious. There you go.
That would make sense. Yeah.
It's a good call.
It's been
Good call.
I used to work in a produce department.
One of your many jobs over the years.
Yes.
I think this is an enjoyable sipper.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you get maybe turned off by, what you're saying about how they can, do some additives to it, because that can obviously impact, I think, the flavor, color, stuff like that, I'd imagine. But, it is a good presentation of a bottle. Now you showed me that picture of the old ones. Now I remember seeing those bottles. I like this better. The new presentation looks a lot nicer, in my opinion.
I think it stands out a little bit more.
It's cleaner.
Yes.
The other one was just like, it looked like
busy.
printed on the label, something that anyone could just slap on.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more elegant. It's got more of the product itself showing, which I can appreciate for those watching. If you look at that, they just got basically a neck label, and then you've got the bottom label here on the very, very bottom. It's like, that's not even the bottom third. It's just not small, but most of this bottle is, they've got that embossed, or I don't know what you want to call it on the bottle, but Templeton with like the grain below it, and it says American whiskey, but they are very much showcasing the product itself, as you guys can see if you're looking at it on Facebook or YouTube. And on the back, it's just all product.
Mm-hmm.
Even like they said, that hard to read label could be strategic. That's harder to read. But this is all you're seeing is a beautiful bottle, the shape. I like the cork on the top. It's got, I don't know if you guys looked at that. It's very, very nice. Let me do this without dropping it.
Well done.
So you've got basically an imprint on that cork that says Templeton Distillery, and obviously again there must be the slogan there, the small town strong spirit, and it's got their logo on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that say? 18? No. Something US. What? It's not that I can't read it. It's
You're talking about on top?
yeah. It's just
the
that
small town strong spirit.
it's next to it. The something 18 there, US.
Oh, it's Iowa. This is IA. Then
IA.
Iowa
Okay.
and US.
So maybe it's IA 18.
That would make them the
It's
18.
IA.
Oh no, just
then
IA
US.
US. You're right. Iowa US. I was looking for like that
The
distillery
DSP number?
Yeah, distillery number.
Yep.
But yeah, IA. So I think the packaging they did a nice job on. It's definitely nicer than the first ones that they had. So
You want to hear the notes they have on their website for this?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Mike, would you like to hear those?
Yeah, I'm hoping you're right with the Golden Delicious.
All right. On the nose, floral, dry spice, butterscotch, vanilla, cherry, and green apple.
Great.
On the
On the
nose.
nose, not the smell, or not the flavor.
Butterscotch is the one that I taste more than anything.
On the palate, fruit and toasted oak, mellow and smooth with a vibrant mouth.
Vibrant mouth.
The body is bold oak with burnt sugar sweetness, and then the finish, long lingering spice.
Yep, that's for sure.
I think we're circling around most of that. Is that on their website?
That was their website.
That's their own. Okay.
This is actually the first that I've had that where the spice really lingers at the end.
Is it overpowering to you?
When we get into the pairing, this has been a first. It's actually really unique. I would say it is very powerful for sure, but this is a first experience when it comes to the pairing, especially with this one. What it does to the smoke is completely different than anything I've experienced before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very unique. And like I said, I'm not the biggest bourbon guy in general, but I will say when it comes to pairing, this is very unique.
Yeah. Put a comment, and you guys can comment if you're listening live, Ray. Treasure says, I know a few people with a vibrant mouth. I'm sure you do, Ray. I'm sure you do.
Oh, and if I may, there was when I was trying to find information, about not just this product, but some of the controversy surrounding it. There was another review site that they had some notes on there that reminded me of a few weeks ago when I was reading some and just kind of how it was written. So here's Nate's notes, not mine, someone else's. Appearance. So just looking at it, tawny color, slightly darker than its 4-year-old sibling. Legs stick to the side of the glass more. Nose, relatively sweet, bringing to mind puff pastry made into cream cheese danishes. Just a dash of rye spice. The wood comes through with butterscotch and vanilla. And then the palate.
We haven't gotten to the palate yet?
No.
Jesus Christ.
Palate. The rye jumps right out of the bottle with a surprising boldness, but it doesn't last long. It also doesn't bring the grassy flavor I find in many other ryes. Brown sugar, apple pie, cinnamon, and coconut fill out the mid palate. Then it eases into a long nutmeg and charred oak finish. The mid palate and finish accentuate the sweetness.
That's very detailed.
Yeah, very colorful. It's probably written by someone with a vibrant mouth.
You got a pretty mouth.
Jesus. That is a nice review there. No, I think so. This is one that I will say, I don't want to say it would be like like an intro rye for people. I'd be interested to try the 4-year rye, maybe a little lighter, maybe less spice. Could be a little bit more abrasive though, too. You know what I mean? If it doesn't have the age on it, I don't know. We'll have to try that at some point, but
sometimes ryes can do that to you.
Right. I think that this one is, Mike, you're not a big rye drinker, I don't believe. Right.
No.
So I think this is something that you're enjoying it. This is with all those flavor notes, whether it be from, the websites, what we talked about, but I would say that this is not necessarily just going to be that rye spice bomb. And this is coming in at what, 91.5. Yeah. 91.5 proof. So nothing too strong, but also nothing light, so
the 10 year is 104 proof.
Interesting. I did not see that.
And it's also $90.
Okay. So it jumps up big time. You got 35 and then this is 39 in Ohio, which is usually about the MSRP. And then you go up to, what was it? 90?
$89.99 for the 10 year.
Quite the jump there. So I would imagine it's quite a different product. And also, like you said, it's almost 10 or it's over 10 proof higher.
Yes.
Yeah. So
104.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. You guys want to talk about pairings? Let's see if you have something else, Nate, on this.
I was reading Ray's comment.
Which one was this?
Nate's notes. That ought to be a regular feature. They do Ted's notebook on Sky Sports F1.
Nate's notes. All right. You have to be prepared for that. We'll bring that in right before the ratings next time. All right. Ratings.
Get my smoking jacket or the velvet robe.
Get a second camera. You have to go over to another chair in the garage and just go to that.
Kind of like some of the videos that Dino Tripodis does.
Yeah, exactly.
He's sitting in his leather chair with the suit on.
Put like that on the TV. Put like a fireplace behind the TV right there. We're not going to do that. That's a lot of work. All right. So when we do the ratings for those listening for the first time or haven't listened in a while, 10 is the best. And this is, we don't do necessarily, you build up to that score. This is just what you think, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. You rate the whiskey, you rate the cigar, and then a third rating of the pairing. So, Mike, go ahead with your ratings here on the whiskey, the cigar, and the pairing. We're smoking once again Espinosa Cigars. This is going to be the Murcielago de Oro TAA exclusive for 2023. The whiskey is going to be Templeton Rye 6-year. Mike, go ahead.
So I'm going to take another sip. Really
sip away.
He's got a sip to get his notes.
I'd say for the whiskey, I want to give it an 8.
Okay.
I would say for someone like myself who doesn't drink a whole lot, I would say this is probably one of the better ones that I've had.
Mm.
I would say what I like about it, I do like the spice. I was really surprised by how long it lingers. But I could definitely taste the butterscotch and the green apple. Like those are the two that I get more than anything, which are two things that I thoroughly enjoy.
There you go.
So if this would definitely be something I could sip on if I had it at home. Now for the cigar, I'm giving this are we doing just 1 through 10? Are we doing like the point system?
You can take it out as many decimals as you would like.
I'm gonna say like a 9.2.
9.2. Got it.
And the reason why I say that is, again, I've always loved Espinosa cigars. Not trying to be biased or anything, but I love the fact that the construction is great. The draw is great, which are two major things when I look in for cigars. But I think it's stronger than was depicted, in my opinion. I love the pepperiness to it and just that real like earthy flavoring that isn't typical with a lot of Espinosa's other cigars. Is very unique. But the thing is, I'm going to give the pairing like a 9.5.
Oh, really?
And this is the first time this has happened. So because they're both really spicy, I think the whiskey overpowers the spice in the cigar. But what I noticed is once I take a sip of this first before I take a drag of this guy, the leatheriness really just like comes into play, and a lot more of that earthy flavor comes like out way more after taking a sip of this guy. I feel
You're
like
talking about on the cigar.
on the cigar,
Okay.
like the flavor just pours through on a different level after a sip of this guy,
Yeah.
which that's never happened to me with any other pairing I've ever had. So for that reason, I might actually enjoy the cigar more after drinking this, just by how much more the flavor for me just pours right through.
It's cool.
I've never had that happen to me. This is the first time.
Nice. No, that's good. I think I will say, and then we'll go to Nate. This cigar, I think, would pair with a lot of whiskeys very well.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, kind of, building off of what you had said earlier, because you brought it up first, was like we talk about like the food flavors, the woodiness of it. Not like you don't get in what Mike's saying here. I'll get into a little bit more, but you go ahead with your ratings.
All right. So whiskey, I'm a 7. This is slightly different profile than some of the ryes that I do enjoy.
Mhm.
Some of the ryes, and Steve knows me, I like a lot of ryes.
Yeah.
And those can range anywhere from big, bold, spicy ryes like a Russell's Reserve 6-year or single barrel rye, or to something a little bit more sweeter like Angel's Envy rye, or some of the Willet 4-year ryes, that kind of Christmas in a glass type thing.
Yeah.
It's good. I was actually surprised by kind of how smooth this is initially, the whiskey. At that price point, there might be a couple other ones that I might go to more often than this one, but it's still a solid product. If you get past some of the controversy behind it and just enjoy the product, it's an enjoyable product.
Yeah.
Me reading up on it before I tasted it, I thought it was going to be some big artificially flavored bomb,
because you read up on it first.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It was, smooth sipper with that rye spice on the finish, that a lot of people look for in a rye. So, it's a solid product. Just not one that would be in a regular rotation for me.
Do they give the mash bill?
95.5.
95.5. Okay.
95 rye, 5% barley.
Right. Got it. Okay. How about the cigar, the Murcielago de Oro?
Cigar, that's a 9 all day long.
Nice.
This is a fantastic smoke. That first light up, I was like, holy shit. And then hearing Tyler, it's like, yeah, it's medium body. I'm like, where? Medium body compared to what?
The Murcielago.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what
fair.
I said earlier. I was like, maybe compared to the regular Murcielago, it's medium, but compared to like the sticks I smoked earlier today on my porch, like the first cigar I had today with my coffee was a Laranja. So, and that's on like the low end of medium, I would say. this is killer. This has got a ton of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like, okay, maybe wait till we get into the cigar, see if the cigar calms down a little bit, which it did. It smoothed out, and then allowed some of the other flavors of that tobacco to kind of come forward throughout the rest of the cigar. But definitely comes across initially like a front-loaded cigar where it's like, we're going to just blast your palate with a bunch of flavor, and then we're going to back off a little bit. And it's a fantastic smoke, and to be able to come up with this kind of flavor profile for this cigar and at that price point, that's amazing.
And a small production too.
Yeah. So Eric working with AJ, they definitely knocked it out of the park, I think, on this one. Pairing, split the difference. I'm going to be an 8 on the pairing. I agree with some of the stuff Mike had said about, I think going cigar to whiskey, it picks up a little bit more of that vanilla and sweetness right up front. But then whiskey to cigar, because you still have that lingering spice from the rye, it almost cancels out the spice on the cigar when you initially take a draw of it. And so you get some of those other flavors of the tobacco when you go from the whiskey to the cigar. So they do kind of complement each other in the fact that they have some similar flavors there that then cancel it out because you're already tasting that. So now your brain's looking for other flavors to taste.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the whiskey, the Templeton Rye 6-year, I'll give it a 7.5. I'm kind of in between you guys, I think, but we're all in the same ballpark there. I think this is good. It's not necessarily one that I am going to keep restocked in my own personal bar. It's, and I'm talking in negative terms here, but I go out to a bar or whatever, and I see the whiskey list or whatever, and I see Templeton Rye 6-year. I'm not like, oh man, I'm going to get that tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to pick something else on the menu, but I do like it. I liked the first glass more than I have. And I mean, Mike even asked, like, what do you guys do with the bottle? Like when you're done with it, and after the podcast, I'm like, depending on the night, and how many people and also how long the show goes, like there's not always anything left in the bottle.
It also depends on the proof sometimes.
Also depends on the proof.
But
this one, as I've been sipping on it, it's almost like it's again, I'm speaking negative first, and I'll kind of build it back up. It's kind of getting stale. Like it's getting, it's not as exciting as the first glass, which some whiskeys, just like any other product, I can, like cigars, same way. I'd light up a second one, after I smoked one. I don't have to change. This one would be like, all right, I'm gonna have a glass of that since I haven't had that, and say it was on my bar in the house. I'm gonna have a glass of Templeton Rye tonight, but I wouldn't necessarily keep going back to it.
You might not have two.
I mean, I have two. I'd probably switch to something else. So that's where it's a 7.5 for me. It's a nice bottle. It's a nice flavor and the things we've talked about. And I'll get to the pairing here a little bit after the cigar. It's just not necessarily like this, like, oh, wow, for $39.99, which is a great price for a bottle of whiskey anymore. $40. It's just not. I don't care about the controversy. I didn't read up on that. You know what I mean? But I can get where people are a little bit turned off by that. The cigar, the Murcielago de Oro, I'm there with you guys. I think this is a 9. You brought up the price point, $12.50 MSRP for this 6x54 oval press. It just smokes really, really well. It's just a great flavor. It's very approachable. This is, unless you smoke very, very mild cigars, you like all Dominican tobacco, something like that. This is like anyone could probably enjoy it. And for $12.50, you're not going to be disappointed. And also there's going to be people that for $12.50, they're going to be like, how many more do you have? Can I get a box?
Yeah.
Not just because it's limited, but, I'd go back. I'd smoke this again if this was regularly produced. It wouldn't be necessarily like my go-to cigar. But, I mean, I think this is a great, great blend that they did here. And they went off on a little bit of a limb with that Mexican Claro wrapper, because people see, or they read Claro and they think a lot lighter than this, obviously. Yeah. But in contrast to,
or with some cigars, they think green.
Yeah. So the pairing for me, I agree with you guys. I think you both said it. Whiskey to cigar brings out a lot in the cigar. As we've done this now for about an hour, cigar to whiskey, I think that's what's kind of making the whiskey stale on my comments. I think that this cigar goes well with would go well with a lot of ryes, a lot of bourbons. I think it would do well with a lot of those just because the flavors that you're getting from that complement your traditional bourbon flavors.
Something a little heavier, something a little richer in flavor.
You could. I don't want any spiciness, and this rye is not very spicy. I don't want anything like that's just going to like try to drown out the cigar. But I think going, the pairing, I don't think I give it an 8 because whiskey to cigar is pushing 9. Cigar to whiskey, I think it kind of makes that whiskey start to get a little bit boring. And that's where I kind of go back and forth. I think it's a nice pairing, but I don't think it really works both ways as well, which sometimes I think we do have a cigar. We have a bottle that really works both ways. And this one, I think going from the tobacco to the whiskey, it's not as good of a compliment.
I was just going to agree with you. When you said that, I'm like, I'm going to try that real quick. And I
completely
agree. I almost feel like when you go to cigar to whiskey, it almost takes away almost all the flavor of the whiskey. All I'm really getting is spice.
Which is why I think maybe that's where my comments are coming from, is that the whiskey is getting boring. So that may not be a fair assessment of the Templeton Rye 6-year because we are smoking the cigar with it, and that might be affecting my palate on the bottle.
But to that end, this could be one of those whiskeys where you might sit there and go, you know what, I want to have a whiskey, but the highlight of my night is I really want to focus on this cigar.
Yeah.
But I want to have a whiskey that's not going to interfere with the cigar, but something that's at least got some character to it. You know, nothing that's real light and 80 proof and super easy sipper. That's where I think this whiskey does well, is when you want the cigar to be the star of the show.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a fair statement. I absolutely agree with you on that. I do. Yeah, you guys have anything else? Let's round out part 1 here. I do want to thank all of you guys for listening to part 1. If you're listening on the audio, please do click over to part 2. We've got more Bourbon and BS community page comments to talk about. We appreciate everyone. Nate, I know you were on there. We had a couple other people. Ann Dimmick, I don't know if she's going to be listening tonight, but she lit it up.
Yeah.
So you may want to even tag her on the comments and say that we're going into part 2. But want to thank you guys that do the Patreon thing for us. It's been just so very, very generous to you guys. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You can do like a $5, $10, or $25 tier every month. It does help pay for things like, obviously, us to be able to stream this live, to put it out on all the podcast apps, and just to get a little bit extra so that when we do have to buy the bottles, it's a little less out of our pocket when we don't have people bringing them to us. We've got, I do want to mention, speaking of whiskeys, we've got some exciting stuff coming next week with Barrel Craft Spirits. We've got a couple new bottles of the barrel bourbons. Might even be, I think, a rye product in that next week as well. We've got Stephanie coming back on. Stephanie, I think it's Blair, right?
Cool.
She's going to be back on remotely. We'll be talking to her about those products from Barrel Craft Spirits. And then also Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you guys want to kick us a little bit of a contribution that way. Everything helps. Tinder Box at Easton, not the Murcielago de Oro, but Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio does carry the Murcielago, carries the Espinosa Habano, carries the Laranja line, it carries the 601 line, it carries
Knuckle Sandwich
line. So quite a few options from there. So far, March 16th, 2024, we're going to have Eric Espinosa back in Columbus, Ohio at the Smoking 10 event. So maybe we'll have something new there as well. So check that out. Again, put it on your calendars, March 16th, 2024. And also I want to thank Altadis USA for the continued support. If you guys haven't listened to last week's episode, it's not up on the audio quite yet, but it is available on YouTube and also on the Facebook page. If you guys want to listen, we had quite the conversation with Travis Pappenheim and then also Charlie Ward from Altadis USA. We appreciate those guys being on. And check out that episode. BS Cigar Company. Espinosa does make the BS Silver, and Placencia makes the gold. Check those out at Tinder Box at Easton. They can always send it to you. And if you guys want some swag, buyjack.com/bourbon-bs. I've got the blue and gray, which I don't think we make anymore, but we do have a blue and black. This is an OG that wasn't coming out right. So we made sure that we did the, now we have a black and blue, which is pretty badass. And Nate's got that pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. T-shirt on. And that comes in, I think, 4 colors right now.
Yes.
Black, gray, red, blue. There's also some hoodies for those of you that are going to be getting some real fall weather coming up here soon.
Are they available yet?
They're available on buyjack.com/bourbon-bs. You've got a black and white hoodie the BS hoodie. You got a blue and white hoodie that's BS, and then you've got, I think he's probably got the Barrelhead black camo with the bourbon and BS Barrelhead logo on the chest there. So that's a nice one there. So those are available to you guys. They are printed to order and shipped directly to you. We make it as easy as possible for you on that. So check it out. With that being said, we're going to take a quick intermission. And if you guys are listening, like I said, on the audio, just click over to part 2. Listening live, you can stick around or come back in the next 5 or so minutes, 10 minutes, probably 5. And we're going to get into some of the community topics. Guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy your week. And Dimick is watching. She's here. And then she, of course, says, my favorite barrel, quote, control states are hard. But we've got quite a few barrel bourbons on the shelves in Ohio now. I think all 4 of the core ones are on Seagrass, Dovetail, the barrel bourbon. And then what was the not Armada. It was the, what's the other one there? And Vantage was the 4th one, if you remember that. Barrel Vantage.
Oh, yeah.
Armida?
Well,
I'll look it up.
All right.
oh, right back.
You got it. What's everyone drinking or smoking out there while we take a quick intermission here? We're going to be lighting up the Murcielago. This is the box press. Toro. This is the original one in part 2 here. I'm still working on the
so you've got barrel bourbon, Seagrass, Dovetail, Armida, Vantage, and then you have a gray label Seagrass, which is a limited production.
Yeah, that's like 160, right?
$149.99.
$149.
Add your sales tax. Yep, 160.
Yeah, so we've got, I think, 2 new products from them, not only this week, but then we're going to have another 2 new products from them in about a month. So we appreciate Aaron and getting us those and lining us up with great people from Barrel Craft Spirits. We've talked to the master distiller. We talked to the person behind the Stellum project. We talked to Stephanie before. So we're going to have her on again. Just been great. And it says, send it all to Carfagnas.
Yeah, we don't carry any of them.
No?
Yeah, you would think that would be one.
You should, man.
We should, because we have the clientele that's
absolutely.
We have the clientele that's looking for that $80 to $100 whiskey. I say that, and Matt would sit there and go, "What the fuck are these doing here?" And he'd get mad at me, like, "Oh, well."
I mean, you can speak highly of them as someone that is the expert there, though.
Yeah.
That's something. I know you've really enjoyed Seagrass. I know you, not to really pump them up before we get them on next week, but
Seagrass and Dovetail really enjoyed.
Yeah. Dovetail, if you remember, that was one of Nick Perdomo.
Yeah.
His favorite was the Dovetail. I was surprised. He's like, I don't know if you've heard of this. I was like, I have heard of this. And that Vantage we did, probably the last one we did from barrel was the Vantage, and that was really, really good. We did the Stellum. We did the those 2 special bottles.
Yeah. First was the Stellum, the bourbon, and the rye.
Yeah.
And then, there was the special one. Oh, gosh.
Not Equilibrium.
No.
It was like a Paradox series or whatever.
There were 2 of them. One was a bourbon, one was a rye. I forget what it is. It's the mathematical.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I forget. There's a lot of syllables. I know that.
Yeah. Let's see.
Ann says we need those there. We need those here. Stellum. When I was in Chicago and I was at the Binny's, I sent you a video of the whole lineup that they had between their normal bottles and then also all the barrel picks they had done.
Fibonacci.
What's the other one?
Equinox, I think.
Yeah, Equinox.
Yeah,
That's right.
Equinox and Fibonacci.
Yeah.
I had to look that up because that was going to drive me nuts.
You wouldn't have been able to focus in the second part.
Nope.
Nope.
and Jess texted it to me right as I looked it up.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Let me find. We've got quite a few things going on here.
Mike's hydrating.
Hydrating. The prime.
Gotta get the prime.
You can bring it back here if you want it. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Gotta promote the Logan brothers, right? Or
Sure. Yeah, they need more promotion. The Logan or the Paul brothers.
Yeah, that's right. The Paul brothers.
They're really struggling. I heard.
That's the word on the street.
It's not.
It's different now. They're doing quite well for themselves.
Yeah, I think so. Get one of them on here. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 287, part 2, Beyond the BS. For those just joining us on part 2 here, we are still joined by Mike Dieter, and he brought us the Murcielago de Oro. During part 1, in the beginning of part 1, we did have Tyler Jones from Espinosa Cigars kind of giving us a rundown of that cigar that I'm still enjoying. You guys both done? You're almost done. Mike's done. And we're also going to be smoking the Murcielago, the original here. Not her.
My favorite.
Sure who's.
Probably workers, Nick. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. But yes, anyways, sorry, there's a lot of people working on the house next door. So
I was like, there's a lot of cars out here.
A lot of cars
Yeah.
coming and going.
Yeah.
A lot of cars.
pretty sure there's like a family basically living there, working on the house while they're, yeah. Anyways, they're very nice. They're very nice.
Yeah. Cul-de-sac hasn't seen this much attention since the early days of 2020.
It's true. It's true. And yeah, this was the meetup point for cigars during the lockdown. Part 2. So we're going to do the community topics here. So if you guys aren't on the Facebook page, the group page of Bourbon and BS Community, it's 1,600 members strong. We appreciate everyone listening through that. You can join also and follow Bourbon and BS podcast. But on the community page, there's a lot of things you guys can post, right? And you can continue the conversation. You can post things that you're drinking, smoking, just pretty much anything, really. I mean, it's definitely more of a community page. It's not just necessarily, not talking down on it, but, you know, the rare stuff. We don't flip bottles. You don't sell product on there. You don't do any stuff that will get you kicked off the community page. But it is very nice. It does also help, especially the last month or so, just posting on there and looking for part 2 topics from you guys, because we can talk about what we want, but it's nice to talk about the things that people that are listening, they want to talk about. So we also, when we stream live on Wednesday nights, it's a way that we can get the conversation going. So if you guys want to comment on there, ask any questions, just do it on the comment feed. We do have it on YouTube, but most, if like 99%, 95% of the comments are coming through Facebook. So guys, share, like, review, all that stuff for us. And most importantly, like I said, when I say share it, it's not just share it to, you know, your page or whatever, but if you think someone will get something out of this or enjoy it, tell them about it. You know what I mean? It's great. You know, I just had a new customer in from out of town and somehow came up that we do a podcast. He's like, oh, I'm following you already. I'm like, oh, great. You know what I mean? It's just telling someone and they can listen, whether it be live, whether it be on the video or just on the audio, and just enjoy it. I know a lot of people commute and travel for work. Mike, I know you travel for work. So there's a lot of windshield time, and sometimes it's nice to have that. It's something to listen to.
The amount of times when I've been driving home on a Wednesday evening or driving to and from other places, I watch this every single time I'm behind the windshield. If I'm not on the road,
Eyes on the road.
well, yeah.
But yeah. Well, now you can just pull it up and set it down, you know, and listen to it, you know.
Right,
stream it
right.
up
No,
on
he's got
Bluetooth.
his phone right there up on the dash in front of the
Perfect.
steering wheel.
Actually,
so
what I do is I actually fold it sideways and it fits perfectly, so it's tilted. So like while I'm driving, it just kind of like eyeball down a little bit.
We're not much to look at. It's more just listening. So
Yeah.
that's a nice. Well, thanks for agreeing so much.
self-deprecation.
Yeah, that's the best way to go.
Oh, I'm so glad we have this. So glad we have this tonight.
The Murcielago.
Yeah. This is
Just try not to set the mic on fire.
Cool. Appreciate that.
safety first.
The first community topics we're going to touch on it real quickly. We had Bobby Hirschman out there and throwing some shade because he knows I'm a Bears fan. He said, when was the last time the Chicago Bears won a football game? I believe it was October of 2022, late October, so it was later in the season, but they did win a game. I think it was October 20-something. of 2022. It's been a slow start. Not too thrilled with it. A lot of drama in Chicago, not only with the performances on the field, but now, as of today,
the field.
Defensive coordinator is resigning due to personal reasons, health reasons, also rumors of FBI raiding their house. So, it's been a very colorful yet disappointing first 2 weeks of NFL football for me.
Has it been a surprise?
Yes. It's been a lot worse than I thought.
Okay.
Not a complete surprise, just one of those really kind of moments. Really?
Here we go.
This is it? This is why I put a Bears shirt and hat on Sundays and go somewhere and watch the game, because I don't have it on my TV.
You actually go out in
This
public
is
and
what
admit
we
that
get.
you're a Bears fan.
I know.
Everyone looks at you going,
And then I do it on here. Anyways,
well, it's a good thing Kristen's a Bears fan too.
it works out. Misery loves company.
There's no one sitting there going, my team's better than your team.
Yeah, no, certainly not. Not between us. Just who do we blame more than the other people on the team? All right, so here's let's see. Just start with some of these here. So from Andemic, let's say, wow. What are the best three decisions you've made in your life? What are the best three decisions you've made in your life?
Ooh, these were. It's a deep one.
Yeah. Anyone? Has anyone made any good decisions?
Married my wife.
Okay. That's good. Jess, I know
That
you're
was a
listening, so good.
I think I'm contractually obligated to say that one.
Okay. That's how much you stand by it. Good. Okay, that's one. That's it.
So far, I would say making the jump to my current job. I'm in a better place personally with everything that I've done so far this year. So I would as of right now, I would say that's one as well. Because that was something that was a little because of some past experiences, sometimes choosing to make the change has been rather difficult. We've talked about you. I saw your look, Mike, when I said that. We've talked about before where there's a difference between change being forced upon you and choosing to make the change. Choosing it's like you're leaving something that may be a comfort zone to go and do something different, something that you haven't done, something new, which can be a challenge. It can be scary at times.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I would say that's one as well.
Okay, Mike, how about you? Anything? Nate, we'll come back for your third.
I mean, I think it's a little bit more of a deeper dive to explain, but I would say probably the biggest decision that I've made that's benefited me the most is focusing on myself. So what I mean by that is I let go of things like fear of judgment, focusing on other people's thoughts and opinions of me and things like that in a nutshell, and just focus on being authentic to who I really am, instead of applying myself to what everyone else wants, their opinions, things like that. I focus on being myself, and that's been a long journey going through all that. But when it comes to my own sense of happiness, that's probably one of the best decisions I ever made. I stopped allowing everybody else's thoughts, opinions to dictate my behaviors and my choices and things like that. And when you focus on yourself, you typically show up as a better person for everyone else around you.
No, I like that.
Not so much deeper dive to explain the details, but
no, I mean, you can pick some highlights there. Let me chime in there. Best three decisions you've made in your life. I don't know, occupationally, for example. I mean, it was kind of off of what Nate said, my first real career there after college was just because I call it a college job gone wrong, kind of in a funny way, where it's, in college I was a mover for a company, and then didn't really know what I wanted to do after graduation. So they kind of reached out to me and said, "What are you doing after college?" And I said, "I don't know." And so I started in management as an assistant fleet manager, and I am not the most mechanical person, but I was basically within 3 months became the fleet manager of the company, and then spent a whole decade there. Was kind of somewhat surprised, but also it had been a rough, year and a half due to a lot of things with that job where I was let go with no warning after over a decade. And I had actually started kind of helping Brian Joyce out at Tinder Box because I was a customer there, and he asked if I would be willing to put in a few hours in just to give him a few hours off a week or every other week or whatever. And I did that. And so I'd say, where I'm at now, fast forward another over a decade, I've been working in the cigar industry as a manager of a shop that my position really doesn't exist in most of the industry, in my opinion. And so being able to take that dive where it wasn't a pay cut of not getting paid after I was let go, but based on what I had kind of built up in my career in the moving and storage industry, it was a huge, I guess not gamble, but almost like a unsure of what I was going to do with the next 10 years, let alone just a year of my life. And so just doing this and taking that kind of risk on myself and taking up Brian on the offer of, and he scraped what he could together as an offer to make this a full-time gig, going from, a position where I had 120 employees to basically we have a staff of 8, including the owner and myself. So, I mean, that was a huge culture shift, life shift, and everything else. And that's kind of basically built up a lot of what people know me by, whether you're good friends of mine or just, through the internet, through the podcast and everything else, just all the things along the way. I think that was a great decision so far that has paid off in a lot of ways, and really the quality of life in most ways as well. That it's just been a great decision of mine to take that leap into what would most people look as a hobby lifestyle and say, oh, it would be cool to work in, cigar shop. And it's like, that's actually what I've been doing for 10 years now as a full-time job. And like I said, that's a very rare occurrence, I think, in our industry from the retail side, if you don't own a business.
Yeah.
To be able to have a full-time salary position that you've been doing for a decade. And actually, not just a retired person that's like, well, I don't really need the money. No, this is like how I make my living.
Exactly.
So it was definitely a gamble. And I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity I have doing that.
Yeah, we definitely hear a lot of people coming in. They're like, oh, this would be a great job after I retire. It's like, yeah, when you just need supplemental income. Sure.
Or they'll say, what else do you do besides this?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like,
this
is it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. They're just like, they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Some people are like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You do this full time? That's amazing.
Yeah. I sell full time. I either sell cigars at Tinder Box or I sell cigars, wine, and booze at Carfagna's.
It's not bad.
I sell hobbies.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I sell vices.
Lifestyles to some. Lifestyles.
I want to chime in with one more thing, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking about it a little bit more in depth. If there's any decision that I've made that's probably made the biggest impact, as much as choosing my own happiness and stuff like that, is letting go of the fear of making a decision and to do something that you actually want to do with yourself and your life. Like letting go. There's a story that I have that happened to me back in 2015. You don't know if you want me to jump into it or not.
Go ahead.
But
yeah.
So if there's any decision that I've made that really helped me, because I was someone for years and years and years. So I'm sure a lot of people experience this where, there's something you want to do, but there's things that are going to hold you back. Like you're too afraid of failing. You're too afraid of this. You're too afraid of that. There's always going to be excuses until you eventually finally face that fear and you make the decision and you commit to something, no matter what the risks are, no matter what the challenges are going to be, you go ahead and you do it. So I've been a wrestler my entire life, and I can openly say that I had all the talent in the world when I was in high school and I was a kid. And I was that guy that put in probably 60% effort and cared more about looking cool and not trying, doing just enough not to fail.
Yeah.
And which ultimately ended up with, empty dreams that were never fulfilled and stuff like that. And fast forward to, I graduated in 2005. Fast forward to, let's say 2014. I wrestled a little bit in college and stuff like that, but I was working for a company called Orange Theory Fitness.
Yeah.
And the one dream that I've always wanted to have, like I was successful when I was a kid, like the state level and stuff like that, but I've always wanted to be an All-American. And so come around the end of 2014, going into 2015, there's a tournament that they do every single year for Folkstown Nationals out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. And I saw it, and I immediately was like, that itch inside of me was like, that could be my opportunity. Now, keep in mind, I hadn't stepped on a mat in years, but I was working out all the time. I was in good cardiovascular shape because when you work for Orange Theory, you have to take the classes and stuff like that. And I said to myself, like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't care. Like, if I get destroyed, I don't care what happens. Like, I went ahead, I paid the fee, I signed up for it. I'm like, now it's time to go. I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah. Should be.
Like,
yeah.
Like when you're in an arena full of that many people, like granted, there's kids there, there's college kids, there's adults, there's all kinds of stuff. So my bracket was in a certain age gap. But usually these guys that show up to these things are guys that have been doing it for years and years and years. And I was in the division where there was fresh college kids and adults. It was kind of like that mesh in that age group.
Open class.
So there's they call masters A, B, C, D, and E. It's all divided based on your ages. And so what I did was I was trying to make 167 pounds. And so what I did was I'm like, I have nowhere to train.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I don't care that like I have the skill set that, I've learned throughout the years. I'm like, I'm just going to roll with it. And I'm just going to get myself in as good physical shape as I possibly can. So I was doing the classes either right before I went to work or sometimes like toward the end of my shift. And then when the club closed, I'd work out again just to like give myself that sort of edge. Now, also at the same time, too, everyone that I told that I was like, I'm going to do this, everyone was like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Like, even like, for
nuts?
example, like my mom, like, keep in mind, like, this is a point in time where I was living at home. I had a car that was maybe worth $500-$600. It was a 2000 GT Mustang. The windshield was smashed. My check engine light wasn't just on; it was blinking all the time.
Oh,
That's
like it was really rough. And like I was at a point where I was like, I don't care if the car breaks down like halfway through and I have to hitchhike my way like to figure out how to get there. As long as I can get there, I can at least do this.
mm-hmm.
There's just something inside of me that finally let go of all that fear. And I was trying to cut the weight. Like I made it to like 174. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to bump up to the next weight class, which unfortunately in that level, the weight classes go from 167 to 187.
Yep.
Ooh, that's a big swing.
And for guys that are cutting weight, it's a big jump. I'm like,
Yep.
you know what? I don't care. I signed up for this. I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
I used to be that person that would always come up with excuses like, oh, I'm sick or I got an injury. I have to pull out. I'm like, I got sick and tired of it. And to where at the day I had to go and leave, like my mom was like, are you even going to make it there? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if I have to leave my car on the side of the road. Like I'm going there and I'm going to do it. And so sure enough, I drove, I made it there.
Car made it. Good.
I don't know how it made it there. So I go there. I'm getting ready to weigh in. Keep in mind, I stayed at a hotel, woke up the next morning for weigh-ins, thinking to myself, I got so much weight I can get. I'm going to go have a nice big breakfast.
Continental breakfast.
Dude, I
Sure.
went to a Hy-Vee and got myself because you can go and get like sandwiches pre-made.
Yeah.
It was like this big, huge roast beef sandwich. And I had a Quest bar. I'm like, I don't even care. Turn to find out, I go to the arena. They do the whole like rules and all that kind of stuff. And then we weighed in. I weighed in at 169 pounds after a big, huge breakfast.
Oh,
Should have
So
skipped
turn
the
to-
Quest bar.
Dude, so
the Quest
Come to-
bar.
so I'm-
yeah, that's
I'm-
what did it.
No.
Yeah, the Quest bar did
Maybe
it.
the roast beef sandwich.
That 2-pound Quest bar.
yes. So I'm thinking to myself, my scale was off. So I had the option. They said like we can do one or two things. You can either go 187 or you have an hour to cut
Yep.
the 2 pounds. I'm like, I just drove all this way.
I'll
I
be
don't
back.
care. I'm just gonna go 187. Like
You did?
Yeah, I went to 187. And so
Oof.
I'm thinking to myself, I don't care if this goes well or not. At least I showed up,
Like, I'll
and I'm going to
throw
find
up.
out what I'm actually made of. So come to find out later, next day, because you weigh in the first day. I killed time the rest of the day. Like I got plenty of weight. I ate plenty. I got really good sleep. Woke up the next day. So I ended up wrestling 5 matches in the entire day. I won every single match until the finals. So I knew in my mind already, I was already going to be an All-American. So I'm in the finals. And I remember the guy at weigh-ins who I was getting ready to wrestle. And I talked to him a little bit. And he was actually talking about how he was cutting from 210 pounds to make 187.
Oh, God.
Here, I'll show you really quick. Here, I'll show you the size of the guy. So
clearly you were
I was
on the lighter side.
I was definitely on the lighter
back
side.
Above 200,
like
easy.
As you can see,
David versus
there's
Goliath.
me and there's him in the finals.
You're basically standing straight up, and he is bent over.
Yeah. So even to make it even better, let's just kind of show you what he did to me. Let's just put it that way. That was him. That was that one. That was me. So
how did it go?
So this is the best part. And this is the part that really tested my will and my heart more than anything, which is something that when I was younger, I was that guy that if things got hard, I would just quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I can admit that on here too. Like I'm not like that way anymore, but I remember I wanted to get past that part of me.
Yeah.
A lot of people are, unfortunately. So right when that bell, right when the whistle blew, right off the get-go, I was overpowered. I was outskilled. I was absolutely manhandled from start to finish to the point the match didn't even get finished. He won by injury default because you can't see it now. I'm not going to do it on the screen, but by the third period, I was down by so much.
Yeah.
At the same time, I tore my hamstring, I sprained my MCL, and I lost a tooth all in that match. After the second period, I was on bottom. When I went to go stand up, I felt my hamstring pop.
Yeah.
And for a minute there, the ref gave me like the medical time and stuff like that. I'm like, I only gave it about 30 seconds. I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And so by the third period, same thing happened again. I went in to go and shoot. And when I shot in on him, that's when my tooth hit his knee. And he almost straight up like kneed me in the mouth. And I felt the crack instantly. So I knew right then and there, my tooth split in half. One part of it fell out, and the other part of it fell out about 45 minutes later, like after the match. And so the crazy part is, like at the beginning of the third round, the guy was actually, his name was DeMonte Stonger, I think it was. He wrestled for a college called Grandview, which, if any of you guys don't know, is for any. There's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. There's also NAIA schools.
Mm-hmm.
So Grandview is the long time greatest NAIA wrestling school in the country. And so he was one of their starters. I didn't know this till after the fact, which kind of made me feel a little bit better about myself.
Piece of information
That's
to know.
why he was in the finals as well.
But at the beginning of the third period, he before we start the match again, he's looking at me and he goes, "You okay, bro?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. Let's go." He goes, "You sure?" I'm like, "I'm good. Let's go." And so ultimately, I end up getting carried off the mat because my hamstring completely tore in the third period. And obviously I wasn't winning that match anyways, but just there was something about that experience where I didn't actually quit. I didn't quit. Even though it was by injury, the ref was like, "You're done. You're done. Get off." Yeah. And so there's something about that experience that proved something to myself that for all the times that I always I pulled out or I quit on myself or always had excuses. It was the craziest of circumstances. Most people would have walked away after the second period. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to see this through. I don't care what happens. I was already in the mindset of I don't care what it takes to get there, all this stuff. And at the end of it all, I was able to hold the plaque in my hand, showing that I finally did it.
That's awesome.
I didn't think I was going to get that far 187, let alone 167.
Yeah.
But just something within that experience proved to myself that I'm capable of far more than I ever thought. And I'm never again going to allow myself to hold myself back over stupid excuses that are just all in our heads. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. I mean, that's even as the underdog, if you will, because of just the sheer size, and that's how those sports are. I mean, you went all the way to the end. And it could have been, first match, second match, whatever it was. But, whenever that happened, you went all the way until you couldn't go anymore. And I think the best thing that came out of it, from what I hear and just listening to your story, which is, I think, the most impactful part of it, is that you don't really know necessarily. You might do things differently the next time as far as that goes, so that you would maybe win. You know what I mean? Like you would do it different. Maybe you wouldn't have had your roast beef sandwich, so you would have done the 167.
100%.
But
100%.
with the given, like with the cards that you were dealt, you went all in, and I think that's amazing. It's very very good story. I like that.
It's led me to know, like, if I could do, not granted, it's not something that has to do with your career or anything else like that, but just it's an example of, like, even under the most extreme circumstances, you can keep pushing yourself. You can test your boundaries. Just don't quit. No matter what happens, just don't quit. That's it.
I like that.
You learned a great life lesson.
A painful
Absolutely.
one too.
Yeah.
The 5.5-hour drive home with a right-legged hamstring tear, trying to drive with a.
You were almost in as bad a shape as your car.
Yeah,
driving home.
Pretty much.
Almost.
Pretty much. It was one of those things.
His check engine light was flashing.
Oh, it was flashing for sure.
All I know is after everything, I went to the medical table and the doctor looked at me and goes, "What did you do to yourself?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You don't tell me. It just hurts." So he took. And so I ended up laying on the table for at least 45 minutes, ice packs, everything. And I went to go start walking afterwards because your adrenaline's going, it hurts, but like you're getting, dude, it was awful. It was awful.
It sounds like it.
It was awful.
That had to be a bad drive home.
It was rough. I was struggling just to drink my Gatorade on the way home.
Oh yeah. Shaking the whole time.
My mouth was still bleeding.
Yeah.
My hamstring's in pain. My knee is in pain. It was worth it though.
Yeah, I Nate, did you have a third decision?
I don't know if I can do a third after that one. Jesus.
I mean, it's not a competition.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's like, when was the last time you got beat to shit and then learned a lesson? Like, we don't have to.
No, I don't need to get my ass beat in order to learn a lesson.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's better if you avoid that part of it. I was gonna say.
My wife said it's a good thing you didn't have to drive a stick.
That would have been bad.
I mean, the hard part was it was my right leg and just trying to the movement of my foot with the gas pedal. Keep in mind, just to kind of add to it too, I come to find out that one of the reasons why my check engine light was on, because 3 out of the 8 cylinders were firing.
Oh,
let alone that car lasted.
A whole lot of acceleration there.
It was 1 more month that car lasted before I had to leave in the parking lot, get it towed away and scrapped.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a big metaphor between you and the car there too.
Yeah.
Luckily, you were repairable.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say another thing where, when things aren't going all that well, one of the best decisions, that I've made in recent years is, I was going through a time, if you guys followed the podcast for a while, I had gone through some life changes, went through a breakup, and basically decided to, go on those walks that I was going on, basically to clear my head, try to get as healthy as I could, and really just recenter myself. And a couple things came out of that is I have a great dog, because that was something that I decided I wanted to do, even if I was on my own and I was going to, be a dog dad, and really, really lucked out with getting my dog Tony, and he's just absolutely my best friend.
Dude, he's awesome.
Thank you.
He's awesome.
Thank you. Really lucked out there. And another thing was, sometimes, we've had guests on here. We've talked about it, like the dating thing, whether you're in the dating world, if you've done it before, whatever it might be, is they always say, like, you're not going to meet someone if you're trying so hard type thing. And I made a decision a couple of years ago that I'm just going to do things that I want to do, and we joked about with Bobby Hirschman saying that, if he's still out there, but about, the Bears and stuff like that. Well, one of the things that I was doing with friends a lot of times was go out to the bars and just, watch the Bears game, because they're not local. A lot of my friends have moved away. A lot of my football buddies moved away or whatever. So I didn't really have many friends that were avid football watchers every Sunday. So I decided, I invited some friends out, and I was going to go out and watch the game. And it was funny. It was 2 years ago, actually, that a person that used to work at a bar called Double Barrel was like, I put it out on Facebook. I didn't even realize it, but I put it out on Facebook, like, yeah, I'm looking for a place to watch the Bears game and all that stuff. And he's like, oh, you should come to Double Barrel or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to invite a couple friends. A couple friends did end up showing up, but it's just going out and focusing on me and doing things that I wanted to do. And this is a lot less impactful as far as physically as you were talking about. You know, I was just like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to watch the Bears, even if it's on my own. I'm going to do things that I enjoy. I'm not just going to be hold myself up in the house and just be like, well, I'm just going to sit here.
Woe is me.
Yeah, I guess I just won't go do what I want to do. And sure enough, I went out to that bar and was sitting there waiting on friends. And that's when, long story short, but that was the first day that I met my girlfriend. And it wasn't even that day that we started like talking like that. It was just by doing that, getting myself out there is when I actually had a major life change down the road by just going out and sitting at the bar by myself, waiting on a couple friends. But while I was waiting there, a couple girls sat down next to me, and then now I'm friends with them, and they were friends with Kristen, and that's how that all transpired. But it's one of those situations where it turned out to be a very impactful decision on my part just that Sunday to go and do things that I enjoyed because I wanted to do those things. And like I said, similar message to what you're saying, Mike, totally different arena.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that, I wanted to not like, I didn't just want to go to a bar and drink, watch football. I was like, no, I wanted to, in a more light-hearted way, I want to go out to a bar and watch the Bears game. Like, I'm not going to just not do things because I'm alone and all my friends are busy. It's like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to go by myself. If they don't want to come, I'm just going to go sit at the bar and watch the Bears. Not looking to talk to anyone or meet anyone. I'm going to go do things I enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's where, like I said,
you both made the decision to go.
That's right.
Right. So it's like,
That's right.
To kind of add to it. So like what that experience for me did is it carried on to every element of my life, not just like physically as to, or if there's something in my heart that I know I want to do, like I'm not going to hold myself back from at least doing it or trying it or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to hold back myself from doing the things I know I want to do.
No, I think it's impactful. I think it's very important. And I also think that can really translate to a lot of different arenas, like I said, in life. Whether things are going well, things are not going well. You know, you can challenge yourself even when things are just sunshine and rainbows. You know what I mean? Don't get complacent on that stuff too. Maybe. Nate, you had one on here, and then Ann Dimmick actually commented on it as well. Where do you get your self-esteem from?
Ooh.
You know, Ann commented and added to that that she liked your comment there and says she says, what makes you feel proud? What straightens your spine and makes you stand taller? So Nate, I'll let you tackle that first. There's where do you get your self-esteem from?
So like recently, when I get customers that come in that I've made recommendations to, whether it be on the cigars, spirits, wine, more so wine, really, when I get a customer that comes back that I've made recommendations to, and they're like, I really like that bottle that you got me last time. Because it's that I'm trying, because the reason it means more to me on the wine side, like when I came into this role, you know, my boss knew I knew a lot about whiskey, a little bit about some of the other spirits. He knew I knew a lot about cigars. But in that little room at Carfagna's, most of our money is made on wine sales. So that's the area that he really wants me to focus on and learn as much as I can. And part of that is meeting with the reps and hearing the stories about the products and stuff like that. And kind of building those relationships. So because I'm the only one there at the store where I'm the only one whose job it is to actually be out on the floor helping customers. Everyone else is, we have a lot of wine tenders is what we call them. They're pouring the wine flights and glasses. Got my director, got the guy that does all of our liquor ordering. So I'm the only one whose sole job it is to engage and interact with customers and help them pick stuff out. And I haven't been doing that very long. So when I get those customers that come back and, they tell me that I picked out something that they really liked, that matters a lot. That makes me feel good about the job I'm doing and how I'm progressing in that role.
So you get your self-esteem from
feedback.
Okay.
It's not necessarily that I'm relying on other people, because if someone comes in and goes, yeah, that last bottle, I didn't like it. I'm like, okay, I appreciate you letting me know. I appreciate that. So now, all right, We know that's, it's the same thing with cigars. Okay, you didn't like that cigar. Okay, what didn't you like about it? Now I know where to go and where to point you to in the store. And they still have enough trust in me to make another recommendation, even though the last one wasn't a home run.
Would you say that's more self-esteem or fulfillment? I'm just curious.
I say self-esteem because when I get that positive feedback from a customer, that makes me feel like that could be the only good thing that happens in the day, and I'll still consider that day a win. If I have that one customer that I help and pick out the right product for the right situation, and they come back and let me know, that means a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say self-esteem, Cambridge Dictionary, belief and confidence in your own ability and value. So I think that would be part of that, is that you feel like you're doing your job well.
Okay.
For me, self-esteem, or it also says, belief and confidence in your own ability and value. I remember going to my first chamber of commerce or networking groups back when I was 22, back in that moving and storage career I had. Part of the thing that you had to do in management was you had to at least be a part of one chamber of commerce. We're in Columbus area, so you use all the different suburbs and stuff like that. So, and I was never really, it was more like I could speak in front of the company. I could run morning meetings. I could do all that stuff. No problem. I wasn't always the most outgoing person. I took speech class, both high school, and I did it in college as well. And the only reason I got a B in speech in college was because I didn't like to do all the sources. You know what I mean? It was a lot of work. I could just do this where you just kind of talk
Off the cuff.
And, it's a little bit of the fake it till you make it type thing where it's, you're almost playing a role. It's not necessarily I had the most confidence or anything like that. But as I got older, I remember going to these Chamber of Commerce thing and these kind of forced small talk thing where it's, you're all there for the same reason. But I felt I was younger than most of the people there. I was moving in storage. So it's what can I actually bring to them? In that industry, it was always this, it's you network with people, but it's when you're on the moving and storage, that's usually the last thing that happens when someone is going through different, home decisions, life decisions. Moving is just well, I need to move. Who do I call type thing. So it's I wasn't really bringing a whole lot of value to these other professionals. You know what I mean? I didn't really have the network. I didn't have oh, well, when we're moving people, they're going to need this, this, that. There were some of those when we were more the trade or the realtor type stuff, but we were usually the last people that were involved there. And I remember going to these meetings. I would have much rather stayed at the office doing what I considered my job than going out and doing this stuff. And I was to a point where some of those, it wasn't that I was panicked, but I was just uneasy about it. My palms would sweat, you know what I mean? That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was that obviously I was nervous, but it was maybe a self-esteem thing. It's what am I bringing to the table here? It's I don't really have the value, my own perceived value professionally to help these people out. Everyone had heard of our company locally because it was the biggest in town. So that was kind of nice, but it was just that kind of a thing. And I think over time, I really kind of learned more. I got in, I was promoted through the company to the sales and marketing side of things. And that helped out too, because I started learning more about sales and how that goes. And you're just doing your job to ask for a sale, stuff like that, And I think over time, I've kind of evolved to a point with the self-esteem. I'm not the most confident person, although I've heard from people that I come across that way sometimes, that I'm very confident in myself and come across that way.
100%.
But I'm not all the time. It's just, I've almost built myself up to that point where at least I can present myself that way. But, it's the same thing when no one's around and you're by yourself. Everyone's got I'm not saying the depressing side of things, but it's just those quiet times where you're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to bring value to anyone. You're just by yourself. It's just you and your thoughts. And I think those moments over time, there is a bit of building yourself up so that when you do have the opportunity to present yourself, Nate, with you and, doing that every day now at your store and talking to people, you've had experience with that, doing the cigar thing. You did door-to-door sales. You did all that stuff. I don't know about you, Nate. I think if I was doing door-to-door sales, I would be almost dreading the person opening that door. You know, like I know me on the other side of it.
I did.
On the other side of it, you know, it's like I had my Ring doorbell go off yesterday, and I'm like, seriously, it's fucking 2:30 in the afternoon. You're ringing my doorbell. There's no cars outside, and now I look at like at Tony, my dog's room, and now he's barking. I'm like, what are you doing, man? You know what I mean? But it's like that's on the other side of it. When you were doing it for a job, you're like, I'm just doing my job. Like I'm just trying to make a living. You know?
Yeah. When you're knocking doors in the early part of the afternoon, you know most of the doors you're going to knock on, no one's going to be home, and that's why like the tablets that we had. You know, we would count, you know, first visit, second visit, third visit. So you would try and work your streets to where, all right, I hit this street earlier in the afternoon. No one was home. So the next day when I go out there, or maybe later on that day, you go back there like after 5 o'clock and you're like, oh, now there's a car in the driveway. There wasn't one before. So now I know someone's home. So, you know, earlier in the day, you're not going to get a whole lot of doors open, but you're hoping that there's going to be some there that day. So that way, you know, that gives you that, because doing door-to-door sales, when you have that success right off the bat, the beginning of the day, like that just sets your mood for the whole day.
Well, that's kind of what you had said earlier.
Because you're so excited. You're like, yes, I got the first one. Sometimes that first one can be the hardest one of the day. Absolutely. And then you just start rattling it off.
Yeah.
Well, you get that boost, right? You know, you get that response there where you feel like you're valid now. You're valued in what you're doing. I like what Tony said here. He says, I get my self-esteem from the potential I believe I have. The thought of what if makes me want to try harder. I like that.
I love
that's very good. Very good.
I love that.
Thank you, Tony.
That's perfect.
Mike, how about you? Where do you get your self-esteem from?
Let's see. It's kind of Tony kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit there, to be honest, man.
The what if, like your potential.
It's how do I put this? I'm trying to like put this into words.
Put your thoughts together.
So I always had the lowest self-esteem when I was trying too hard to like being like get people's approval and stuff like that. Like the need to feel like valued from the outside world always left me feeling more empty. It's when I finally started to accept myself for who I am and understand that life is a journey. I am where I am now, but I know day in and day out, I'm always trying to get better at anything and everything that I'm doing in my life. And the more I started to accept who I am as a person for who I am and what I am capable of and what I am able to do, that's what makes me feel good about myself. Like a couple years back, I would say like I was that person that needed approval, like trying to fit in and doing this. And now it's more.
Keep talking.
Oh,
Sorry.
now it's about just like knowing who I am as a person. Like I don't need people's approval. I don't need the outside world's approval. And I'm much happier and feeling my self-esteem is much higher, knowing I can walk in life being my authentic self. No matter what the outside world thinks or believes or says, I'm going to be who I am myself.
Absolutely. And I just got a text actually from Kristen as well, is that, you know, she hopes that she helps with my self-esteem. I think there is that. Obviously we've talked about a lot. I use this example. A lot of times you want to start with your inner circle, which is you, and then obviously the circles around it. And I think that once you do what you're doing and what, you know, Tony had said, Tony Thomas out there, you know, it's once you have that base foundation of yourself, then you start finding people around you that will build you up further, because you're doing, hopefully reciprocating, you're doing the same thing for them, is that your base and foundation gets stronger, the people that you surround yourself with, hopefully.
Yeah. And
if not, and they're just basically crumbling your foundation, then everything that you were talking about, Mike, is now you're going to maybe start questioning yourself, even though you were confident, because it's not, I mean, we're in a social world, right? I mean, and you've got your family behind you. You know, and it's Marissa, right? She was listening earlier. I don't know if she's still listening, but it's like, yeah, I mean, Kristen, you said something about Jess earlier about being one of the greatest decisions. It's like the people that are in your life that you trust with you, hopefully do help the other side of it, of the approval, of the support, of everything else, that almost validates, because you value their opinion. Now they're validating what you believe in yourself.
It makes things easier.
Yeah.
To have to have a significant other that is supportive of
That's
you.
true. Yeah.
It helps tremendously.
Significant other for
Especially-
sure,
especially
friends, family, anything.
Right. And I know the way I am may be different than a lot of people and most people. I will say it's more, for me, it's more of a bonus. When I get it from the outside world, it's an added bonus to it.
Sure.
Like, do I need it? No. But is it an added bonus to everything when it does come my way? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree completely. Then we had this whole side thing here about how to make friends in adulthood. We've kind of talked about this before.
Trying to remember.
I'll put this up on the screen
How
here.
to make friends in adulthood?
Here, I'll put it up on the screen here so everyone can follow along at home and in the garage.
Isn't that such a nice feature where you can copy it on your phone and paste it on your iPad?
I'm surprised I wasn't
That's a
doing
thing?
this earlier.
Yeah, like he
So
just
I
copied it from
off
his
of there,
phone,
and then I
went to
pasted
the
it on my
comment.
iPad.
That's pretty
So,
nifty.
how to make friends in adulthood? Does this happen? How have people made friends past 40? And in parentheses, real friends, not associates, like people through kids, sports, and work.
I don't know about you, Steve, but I like to think you're my friend. I don't think
Absolutely.
I don't think I'd be in your garage and texting you back and forth.
right.
And, I don't think that'd be the case.
No,
And we met a little over almost a year and a half ago.
yeah, I was gonna say about a year. So I'll comment on this here. We've talked about it as you get older. When you're younger, it's easy, but what Ann had said here about real friends, not associates, like people through kids, sports, and work. It's your social circles going back for me, and I think this probably is similar to a lot of people that grew up in the U.S. or probably anywhere. It's your parents were the ones that basically dictated where you lived.
Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm.
what school you went to, the neighborhood you were in, or the apartments that you were in, like whatever your life upbringing was, hopefully let's keep it on the lighter side of it. But you can also, obviously, through tougher times, you become close with people that are going through similar things than you. The similarities, whether it be the proximity, whether it be the hobbies, whatever it is, as you get older throughout childhood years, we all know, like you were in, younger, and then you hit grade school, then middle school, and high school, and you gain new friends. Your old friends dropped off. They went different ways, different friend groups, different hobbies, everything else, because the life experiences are constantly changing. Ann had asked, how have people made friends past 40? Well, I know not everyone's past 40 here, but if you're past 20, past 30, whatever the decade is, you're going to have friends that I have friends that I don't talk to all the time, but when I do talk to them, it's like nothing really changed, right? You catch up, but it's like no time has really left off. And I feel very, very fortunate to have friends like that. And those are those friends that you're like, oh, I should have, kept up more. And they think the same way, like, man, we should get together more often. We should talk more often. And then 6 months go by, and it's like,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Something comes up. Now in days of, social media as well, people see something, they'll comment or they'll text you on the side, be like, hey, I saw your post. I'm happy things are going well. How's everything else? Blah, blah, blah. But I think it's the same thing as when we're younger. As you get older, I'm not like the associates through work or kids' sports. Those are your circles you're in. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that you can make, quote, real friends through that, because, people move away. It's like, you're still friends. We have the technology to stay in touch with them, but it's not like people you're getting together with all the time. Like Mike, we met a year or so ago. You met Nate and I, and it's like, we do text about stuff. You do that stuff. It's not like you're not coming to NFL Sundays, and watching football with me because of proximity.
Yeah.
So I think there's different types of friends there, but I think that hobbies, like what we do here on the show, like the bourbons, and then obviously the cigar community is something that's been a huge impact in my life.
Yep.
And bourbon as well. Ann Dimmick, I wouldn't know her. Nate, you wouldn't know her if we didn't do this and get into the bourbons and stuff. And through the show, even, we've now, I consider her a friend, and through this industry, again, not someone that we get together all the time and, have drinks with. But when you do, you catch up and you talk about life. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
I wouldn't even be into bourbons as much as I am if it weren't for you and Jake starting this podcast.
So there you go. I think the show that we do all stems from the hobbies, right? The same thing as we were doing when we were kids. You got into a sport. Well, now you don't get along with everyone that plays the same sport as you or is on the same team as you, but you might get a new good friend through that hobby, through that time you spend doing it. I still have friends from playing Little League baseball. There's those lifelong things. We don't see each other all the time, but like I can think of a couple buddies, like my buddy Chip Waddell. I don't see him all the time, but when he comes in the shop, his parents came up from Florida and his dad coached with my dad in Little League and coached both Chip and I. So when they came into town, where does Chip bring them? Into the Tinder Box, because he wanted to get a couple cigars, and then his parents wanted to say hi to me. I mean, those are friendships that just through the common time spent, whether it be through a hobby or just, again, proximity. We didn't grow up in the same neighborhood, but those types of friends, there's nothing wrong with kind of losing touch a little bit. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with whether you have kids and you meet them, or if like you're in a neighborhood. Like I've got friends now that live across the street. I've talked about on this show before, Ben and Kylie, Matt and Abby, the Faulkners that live next to me in my old house that I had in the same neighborhood. When I have a get together, a grill out, I'm inviting them along with all of the people that we spend a lot more time with as well. Like Kristen's friends that we spend a lot of time with. But when you have a cookout or if there's a concert or whatever, we have a text thread. And the only reason I know them is the same thing. We don't have kids that are in the same, they have kids, but it's like, we like the same kind of music. So if there's a country concert, there's a text thread going. And it's like, hey, does anyone want to go to the show? And so then we all go together. I think nothing really changes on how you get friends. I think it's just a matter of like what stage in life you are. What do you think, Nate?
No, I agree with the proximity thing, because there's a lot of people that I went to high school with that still live, probably within 30 minutes of me. I haven't talked to them or seen them in years. And a lot of it's because we don't have a lot of the same interests or do a lot of the same things. We knew each other in school because we were stuck in the same brick building, for 7 hours a day. We graduated together. Like that was it. That's what connected us. But then once we all became adults and went on our own career paths and whatnot, that's why a lot of us haven't seen each other, because we're not in high school anymore.
Right.
We're out in the real world, and, we're making friends, through that. There's very few people from any of my old careers that I actually talk to. I hardly anyone from high school, pretty much no one from college anymore, because the best friend I did have in college has no social media. So once he changed phone numbers, I lost his phone number, and he was a groomsman in my wedding, and I haven't seen him since his wedding, which was the year after. There's maybe 3 people at AEP, and I was at AEP for 8 years, and there's 3 people from there that I talk to.
Yeah.
And that's it. But those 3 people are the ones that were the most impactful to me as well.
Those are the friends with everyone.
Yeah. Those were the people that mattered the most. The only person that I have any close relationship with from my 8 years at Battelle is the one I married. and I used to have a policy because of something that happened in college. I used to have a policy that, don't date where you work.
How'd that work out?
It worked out well.
Policy went to shit, but
policy. Yeah.
It was worth it.
It was worth it.
There you go.
But no, a lot of the friends that I have nowadays, it's, a lot of it, revolves around cigar shops.
Yeah.
Not just Tinder Box, but even like Tim Dodge. right?
Sure.
Tim Dodge was a regular at Woodlands up in Delaware,
Mhm.
and the owner there, he and I both went to the same college. We played football for the same coach, just a couple decades apart from one another.
Yeah.
So I used to go up there, before I was a rep, when I was a rep, since then. And so, I've met some great guys there, and that's how I met Tim Dodge. And he's come into the Tinderbox before he moved to South Carolina, and we had him on the show remotely from South Carolina, so those kind of things. That's how I've met a lot of my friends. Was that there was one instance where Jess and I got asked to the lady that owns the barn where Jess keeps her horse.
Mm-hmm.
We got asked by her to help move some furniture. So it was at a warehouse from someone that she knew, and they just needed help loading it into the truck. And then when they got to the barn, they'd have other people there.
Sure.
So I go in, and I was wearing a Tinderbox t-shirt, and the guy there, he's like, "Do you know Steve Crane?" I was like, "As a matter of fact, I do, because I work with him, because I work at the Tinderbox." He's like, "Oh, I was roommates in college with his former roommate at your house down the street."
Yeah.
And so, like, within 30 seconds, like, there's already this connection. And Jess sits there and goes, "I could sit there for an hour and not make any new friends. You were there for 30 seconds and had a beer buddy all of a sudden."
Yeah.
But to one of the things she texted, it's about going out first and, risking being awkward.
I would agree with that. I mean, that's what I'll say to this comment here. The topic was, and while we were talking there, I put some several comments from different listeners out there about this, and it's putting yourself out there. Well, for example, Marissa, she said, a lot of friends through the NICU staff. She knew nothing about anything medical, and just was asking questions and asking how people were, learning about them. I've been able to make friends. It's obviously putting yourself out there a little bit if you have the interest in it. I mean, if you don't want new friends, whatever, that's fine. But just being friendly, you just never know who's walking into your life, you know? And I think that was kind of how you make new friends in adulthood. That was what I had just shared about me going out to the bar, and that's how I met Kristen.
Yeah.
It was I'm not going out to try to pick someone up. I'm not trying to do it, but her two friends sat next to me at the bar and said, "Hey, is anyone sitting here?" I said, "No, I'm saving these seats." And then just talking with them as I'm watching the game over here and they're watching the game right here. And it's just like, just being friendly. And now, like, because, Kristen and I are together, and I had met them. Well, it all started with, "Hey, we're going to be out next weekend watching football. If you and your friends are going to be out, or if and so I just had one of her friends, Shannon. It was, again, right around this time, 2 years ago of the year that I had met them. That's when it happened. And just celebrate like a 2-year friendship on Facebook with her friend Shannon, because after the fact, they had we were talking and like, "Oh yeah, well, we didn't exchange numbers, but it's like, oh, like, are you on Facebook?" That kind of thing. And all of a sudden it's like, "Hey, we're going to be out watching football this Sunday." Fast forward 2 years later, that's who I'm in a fantasy league with. That's who comes over to the house to do cookouts. That's what we do on Sunday. I mean, it's just because I went out and put myself out there and was willing to talk to people. I wasn't overly confident, again, going back to that self-esteem thing. I was just like, you're sitting next to me. And it's like, I literally, my first comment after hey, is anyone sitting here? Is like, "Hey, I'm not trying to listen in, or, I'm watching the game, but it's only on that TV over there. There's no seats. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of looking over you." And that just started a conversation. And that's where we're at.
You were just being yourself.
Just being myself and being friendly, being, being polite. Like, "Hey, I'm not staring at you two girls. I'm actually looking at the Bears game over there as I'm wearing a hat and all that stuff." And they said, "Oh, we have a friend that's a Bears fan. She probably is coming here later." I'm like, "Oh, cool. That's fine." And we can, we got an argument about if Justin Fields or Andy Dalton should play. The rest is history, as they say.
There you go. That's good. That's good.
No, I think it is just nothing changes. It's just a matter of if you guys want new friends or not, or it's just do what you're doing, follow your hobbies, follow your passions, and I mean, if you have that in common with people, like we talk about the cigar industry, especially, I think bourbon industry is much the same. But if you have that common ground, I'm not friends with every cigar smoker, but a lot of my friends now are cigar smokers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just, oh, you smoke cigars, you drink bourbon, let's be best friends. No, it's like, oh yeah, like you get that.
Did we just become best friends?
My boyfriend likes, or my husband likes bourbon too. It's like, oh, cool. And then we talk about it. And it's like, if there's nothing else beyond that common ground, then we're kind of just like bourbon friends or cigar friends. But it's not like we're friends. Yeah, you're acquaintances because of that.
Yep. It's crazy how much the cigar community comes together. I would say out of all the different types of communities I've ever been involved with, there's nothing like the cigar community. There's just something about, no matter where you come from, what your culture is, doesn't matter what it is. There's just something about the cigar culture where no matter what, everyone comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything. Like there's no competition. There's no judging. There's nothing.
Well, there's judging.
I mean, I haven't.
In a good way.
Yeah. I mean, Steve and I have talked about before, like there have been times in the past where, you know, you've got 5-6 guys sitting in the back of the shop and all of a sudden gets into a heated political topic and it's like 4-on-1, 4-on-2, something like that. And all of a sudden, you know, the one guy that's outnumbered, he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. Fuck you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.
So, I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's do this and you guys can comment out there as well.
what do we got? I'm actually digging this whole like copy from your phone
Right?
and pasting on the
Right.
tablet.
Put it up on the screen here.
Yeah.
What would 15-year-old you think if they met you today?
Oh my God. Sorry.
You smoke and drink that much?
Yep. Yeah. Because even my senior year in high school, I had no intentions on drinking. I didn't drink all through college.
I didn't either. I didn't drink until I was 21.
I was 22.
Bug that was interested in booze.
I didn't drink till I was 22. It was after I graduated college.
You've caught up.
I've made up time.
That's right.
Man. I guess I should probably answer this one now too, huh?
Go ahead. What is Justin turn? Damn, it's the same size. What is he talking about? Do we know?
What?
Oh, got it. That took me a moment.
I was like, really?
Wow. I think I know what he's talking about there. Mike, go ahead. Is that what you're going to say?
No.
It's not.
The only
If
thing
your waist is the same size as it was in 15.
All right. We don't have to
congratulations.
get into details here.
my waist at this very moment is actually one size less than I was 15. At
Congratulations.
this very moment. It wasn't always, but
Yeah,
it
I
is
was gonna
now.
say.
Wasn't always. It
Been
was
up-
actually
up and
it's
down.
always been relatively the same. It just went down one that I've never been to before.
There
As
you
of
go.
right now. That's a whole I would probably say if the 15-year-old
15 is that's an interesting age to pick.
Right.
the only thing I could think of is how the hell did you do this?
Yeah.
I was a completely different human being at 15 years old.
I think a
Like
lot of us were, yeah.
I mean, obviously, when you're a teenager, you're learning, you're growing, all that stuff. But like, I literally polar opposite of the person who I am today. Like polar opposite.
Yeah.
And I do remember the exact moment where my life completely changed and I viewed the world very differently. I used to be, when I was younger, I was that egotistical, judgmental. You know, as much as I fit in with everyone, it was all just because I wanted to fit in and things like that. I took a lot of things for granted. I only put in half effort with a lot of things. And if it was too hard where I was going to fail, I wouldn't even try. I mean, it wasn't until, which I don't have to dip into it necessarily, but the situation, how like my dad passed away, when that happened, my whole entire life flipped upside down. And I made a commitment to myself to live a better life, treat people better, don't take anything for granted, and just like appreciate every single day that you have and just have a more positive, more half full versus half empty mindset. I quit the blame game. I quit like all the excuses and just that's where I would think the 15-year-old me would go, how the hell did you do it?
Yeah, I think the 15-year-old me would be, at that age, not only I wasn't, going back to the self-esteem thing, I wasn't the ego-driven person. I didn't have the highest self-esteem. I was a teenager, right? I mean, it's just, I think there's either side of that and there's everywhere in between. But I think stereotypically you think you know everything at 15. That came later for me. It's more like probably in my 20s or whatever. I kind of finally hit that, maybe late bloomer on the, I know more than my parents type thing. And I didn't, whether you're 15 or 20, or even probably now, my mom's still smarter than me. My dad, rest in peace, still smarter than me. But I thought, it was one of those things. I thought that I would be probably in a big house. I'd be, I thought I'd be in the same job, my whole time. I kind of had that whole thing where we've talked about that on the show before. Like, Nate, your dad, even though my parents, my dad especially, he kind of switched jobs and not careers, but mostly jobs. But I thought I'd be doing the same thing. I'd probably be, high up somewhere making great money and, probably had the whole thing, 2.4 kids and, the family life and the white picket fence. That was my whole thing. So I think if my 15-year-old me met me now, at first would kind of be taken aback. I think, if they like showed up here and saw we were doing this right now, and be like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Obviously not just the technology side of things. Like, oh my God, the future is here. You're like, oh my God, you guys are video chatting on your laptop. What's a laptop? What's an iPad? All that stuff. But just once I think I were able to have a conversation and kind of give that, not to get in the Back to the Future type, problems of the space-time continuum here, that I don't want to give away anything to change the future. But if I had a conversation and talked about my ups and downs or if I should probably say our ups and downs, because for the same person, right? We are getting the whole Back to the Future thing.
Little Adam Project moment going on.
Yeah, you go. But I think that once I had a conversation with me at a younger age, is, I wouldn't necessarily change anything because of where I'm at right now. And I think that, he would be catching me at a really good time in my life. That's the big thing. If he met me today, great. If he would have met me at different points of my life, that conversation could go way different direction.
Yes.
If I was in one of my lower points, or, during my, when I was going through like marriage counseling, or when I was unhappy with my job, when I, like I can list a lot of these things, moments in my life of not being sure of who I was or where I wanted to go, or who, any of that stuff. But it's like, if they met me today, it would make a lot of sense. And I think my 15-year-old me would be happy with where I have gotten to. Along the way, there's some like apologies on my part, like, sorry, you're gonna have to go through this shit.
Yeah,
because it's not always easy.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
And who knows if they meet my 50-year-old me, in years to come. Like, I don't know what the future holds. I hope that I can keep where I'm at now, just build off of that, and have a great, hopefully, knock on wood, and a great another 42, 43 years. But I think that, right now it would be a great conversation. And I think that it wouldn't be what they expected, but again, they would be happy with where I'm at now, because I know I'm happy with where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And I hope to, through whatever trials and tribulations that come my way, I hope that conversation going forward, it's a good mindset to have too. Going forward in life, no matter where you're at, if you're down right now, if you're up right now, can you frame that you're making yourself proud? Would you make your 15-year-old self proud making the life decisions you're making right now? What about you, Nate?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Aside from the cigars and drinking,
that's cool, man.
No, I told before, like when I was a kid, I broke my dad's cherry blend cigars because I couldn't stand the smell of them. Oh yeah, I got my ass beat for that one. I got my mom to quit smoking, and when I was 6, and here I am smoking cigars.
Cheers.
It's kind of fun. It's kind of funny because even to this day, so I've been smoking cigars for what I started smoking. It's actually because of Marissa's dad.
That's right. That's right.
He's the one who got me introduced to it. And the reason I've actually continued with this completely different than what most people would ever think. But I was the biggest advocate against any form of smoking. Like my dad was a smoker.
Oh,
Both my brothers are smokers. A lot of my family are smokers. My mom's not. But so much my family was. And like when people started finding out that I smoke cigars, of all things cigars, they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, but honestly, when it comes to the best decisions that I've made, as much as we all know that there's always drawbacks from cigars, it's actually been one of the most beneficial things that I've done in the last couple of years. And I don't know if I told you this before. So it actually manages I'm a very attention deficit for anyone who's watching. I'm very attention deficit. Thank you. And cigars has helped manage my ADD more than anything in my entire life. And it's crazy. And I started realizing it after, I'm sorry, I'm going to go into this little story here. And so when Marissa's dad started giving me some cigars to try, I started noticing a difference in my ability to really slow down, articulate my words better, focus better. And I started thinking like, I've never felt like this before.
Really?
And so I started diving into it a little bit. And keep in mind, from second grade until I graduated high school, I was on Ritalin twice a day and stuff like that. And later on, I found out what Ritalin actually is, and how bad it actually is for you. And so come to find out that nicotine in itself is actually incredibly beneficial for people who are attention deficit. Did you know have we talked about this?
Yeah.
So if you don't, long story short, I started noticing that I can articulate my words better. I can think better, all this stuff. And so I started doing a lot of research on it. And as much as, again, going back, there's always risks involved with, smoking of any kind. But come to find out with cigars, or the nicotine, especially the level of nicotine in cigars versus, say, cigarettes and stuff like that, it's one of the most neuroprotective compounds on earth. And so to give a long story short, when you're attention deficit, one of the reasons if you see someone who's attention deficit and they're all over the place, they can't stay organized, the easiest way to simplify it to make sense is you got 10 thoughts going on at the same time in your mind, and your thoughts and your nervous system have to be on the same frequency in order to fulfill those things. So what's actually happening is your nervous system is trying to compensate for all these different thoughts that are going on through your mind, which is why, let's just say I'm lighting up the cigar, but I'm also thinking about this ashtray. Like I got to move that ashtray. So I'll set this down and go over here. And you can't finish anything is because your nervous system can only focus on one thing at a time. So the reason why they give things like Ritalin and things like that, which is a synthetic amphetamine, most people don't know that either. So stimulants, they give you those things to speed up the speed of your nervous system to match the speed of your brain. So what happens is it makes it look like you're more quote unquote mellowed out, when the reality is your nervous system is heightened to such a degree that it matches the speed of your brain, which also has its drawbacks with, adrenal fatigue and stuff like that. So long term, it's not good for you. What nicotine does is it just slightly heightens your nervous system, but slows the speed of your brain so it's more balanced. And so just to experience, Marissa could probably be a great example to see. She started noticing it right away. It's like your ability to just slow down and talk and be more focused is at a whole different level. And I did an even bigger deep dive into it, and my ability now to not only focus but like remember things is a lot better. I'm like, how is this happening? And so come to find out, so like in your brain, right, you have something called myelin. So you have tons of neural pathways in your brain. And every time you learn anything from tying your shoes to riding a bike or starting your car, right, whenever you learn something, your brain never forgets it. The myelin is what allows your brain to recall it. So every neural pathway has this little fatty insulation called myelin sheath. It's on every single neural pathway. And the amount of myelin that surrounds it is what gives you your ability to recall it quicker. So the things that we don't think about, that we just do naturally, more myelin surrounds each of those pathways.
Okay.
So you've heard the term, oh, it's like riding a bike all over again. You haven't ridden a bike in 15 years, but it takes you a couple of minutes to get going. And then you're like, okay, now I remember. What's actually happening in real time is that myelin is readjusting to that neural pathway that you already have in your brain. So basically you have X amount of myelin in your brain, and it basically spreads itself out over all the things that you do regularly, and the things you don't do regularly, it shrinks off of it. It's like Alzheimer's disease, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that causes Alzheimer's disease is the lack of myelin in the brain. And so the two major things that allow, especially in like your latter years, is having like high fat in your diet, and then nicotine are the two best things to not only preserve myelin in your brain, it's also good to help your body, your mind to create more of it.
Interesting.
So if you ever know anybody who are cigar smokers that are in like their latter years, they may not be in the greatest physical shape, but they're usually the ones that can hold a good conversation. They're very sharp.
Yeah.
It's because they have a lot of myelin in the brain. Nicotine preserves the myelin in your brain. And so I've come to find out, the longer I've been smoking, my ability to just remember things and have things come a lot quicker than it used to. I've been able to slow down. I've been able to focus more. So that's actually been the biggest reason as to why I've continued doing this for so long. It's probably the biggest reason that I've continued to smoke. As much as I've met some great people, I've met you, I've met Nate, I've met so many great people in the cigar community. It brings people together. But from a focus standpoint, there's nothing that I've ever taken or have ever done that's been more impactful for my attention deficit disorder than cigars.
Do you think there is something, and Nate, we'll get to your 15-year-old self here. Do you think there's something about the fact that you're doing something, though?
What do you mean?
From a physical standpoint, not the nicotine, not the physical standpoint of that, but just almost the psychological level, that as you're smoking a cigar, like mechanically your body is doing something. Like taking a pill and stuff like that. I know that, like, whether it be prescription or otherwise, that's something that you do real quickly and you swallow it and it's done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But smoking a cigar or doing like hobbies, right? People like do like woodworking or whatever. Like they always say that's really good for people that are like either ADD or they have the inability to focus. But while they're doing something that, like, you're lighting up a cigar right now, you're committing for like an hour, but you're doing that whole oral fixation type thing where you're like, you're smoking. So you're like, you're physically doing something that you're not really thinking about.
Yeah.
Not doing
you're not just sitting in a chair.
Right.
Like you're sitting in a chair smoking a cigar.
I know you have a lot of the research there, and obviously you read up on that, but I think there's also something there that it's like you're doing something while talking. You're not just sitting there thinking about like what the person's saying and what I want to say back or how do I want to respond. We always talk about that in conversation. The art of conversation is that listening is tough, but while you have something that, yes, it's affecting you, but it's not like sitting here sipping on alcohol that, yeah, at first, it's like when you play like those bar games, like pool or darts and stuff like that, you know, like at first, like you're having drinks in between throwing darts or whatever. It's like, but if you're just sitting there sober and throwing darts and you have that kind of like that attention deficit disorder where you're thinking about other things, you're looking around, and like what you were just saying, like if you're, say, at a bar throwing darts and all of a sudden you're like looking around at different people and all of a sudden you're just distracted. But smoking a cigar is a bit of a psychological and also physical equalizer that you're doing something.
It's a double whammy.
I don't think it's so much. There is a physical element to it, but there's also like if you're sitting by yourself and you're just smoking a cigar, like if that's all you're doing, it actually, and there have been some studies done on it where you're actually like calming yourself down because like you're trying to focus on that cigar.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you're just sitting there smoking a cigar, but it allows your body to relax. You know, if you're someone who is, you know, has hypertension, like your body's relaxed, you're calmer because you're just sitting there. You know, you got no, you know, you can sit there and, you know, throw a TV, look at your cell phone and, you know, do that. But if all you're doing is just sitting in a chair, like on your patio or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just having a cigar, like you're just relaxing. And sometimes just doing that because you're not stressed out, that can add a huge benefit to you because you're not just sitting there worrying about all these other little things.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sitting there being pulled in a million directions. You're just sitting there going, you know what? I mean, how many times do we hear people say, like, I had a shitty day. I just got home. Let me go outside, have a cigar, collect my thoughts. Then I'll deal with the shit at home.
Yeah.
Let me have this hour and a half, whatever. Let me just do this. So that way then I can be in a proper mindset to do the other things I need to take care of. Because if you come home and if you had a bad day at work and all of a sudden you come home, you're in a pissy mood and you've got all these things to do, you know, whether it be chores, taking care of the house, getting kids to different sports or whatever it is, you never have that moment to just be still and relax. And so sometimes having that cigar, it's like, it forces you to do that. It forces you to relax and calm yourself.
I look at it as something that I've missed. Now, granted, I love the low miles on my car, and then I live so close to where I work and stuff. But that windshield time, that's where I was kind of getting at. That is that I think, and I don't know the studies like you guys might, but it's like that driving for most of us is just like, yes, you want to focus on the road and make sure you're driving safely, be alert and all that stuff to other people, but it comes as second nature after a long, you know, at our age, it's kind of like those drives home. It is something where you have, say, a 20-minute drive home from work. If in your scenario, yes, you're thinking about things, but you have maybe the radio, you listen to a podcast, whatever it might be, but you're driving. It's just your body is occupied.
It's almost on autopilot.
Yeah, but not to the point where you're unsafe, but I'm just saying, like, your body is doing something constantly, whether you're driving, you're smoking a cigar, you're doing something where it's like, it may calm you down a little bit just because your body is occupied. So that part of your brain is already firing. And so it's like, it's not like so to someone that is maybe ADD, and again, I'm not an expert by any means on any of that, but people on different, I know this, again, I can't cite anything, but like if you're on the spectrum, like autism, a lot of times the things, especially on the mild side of it, is that as long as people are doing something, they're in a better place because your body is physically occupied by doing something. So therefore it's already firing in a sense, and that calms you in other ways. I think cigars are a little bit like that. I think sipping on whiskey is as well, until you've sipped on too much, and then all of a sudden your chemical imbalance is now just fucked.
Agreed.
Nate, do you want to comment on the 15-year-old self? You want to go back to that?
Yeah.
We got like maybe one or two more, and then we can round out.
I think my 15-year-old self would be surprised about how outgoing I am sometimes now. How comfortable I am talking to people, even complete strangers. That was not something I was good at when I was younger. The quote unquote friends I had growing up, it was mainly because our parents went to high school together. And so all the kids hung out. We were all around the same age. My 15-year-old self would be surprised I have more friends now than I did, or would be surprised I have as many friends now as I do. Yeah. Because, by the time I graduated high school, I could count the number of friends I had on one hand. So, being as outgoing as I am now would be something that would probably surprise my 15-year-old self. Also, the fact that I didn't stick with my aspirations of doing something in the medical field. I think that would be another one. Because originally when I went to high school, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And then I changed my interest to being a genetic counselor. And that was the whole reason I went to college and got a degree in biology. And then I found out, oh, wait, I got to do more schoolwork. Fuck that.
Right.
But that was because college wasn't that great of an experience for me. So, I mean, the good experiences I had in college were outside of the classroom. And again, I didn't drink when I was in college.
Right.
So, but the best moments of my college life were outside the classroom.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Same way. People I met, class was secondary. Not because I was a partier, but it was just because of the people I met. Things to look forward to. Put this one up here, and then we can kind of round it out unless you guys have more to talk about. But one last one from Ann, and I don't know if she's still listening. But and she followed this up with, let's have a "We Will Solve Your Problems" hour where the garage gives advice. I feel like that's what the last month has been.
Well, I also made
Nate,
a comment
you
like,
said-
isn't that why you guys started the podcast
Part
to
two,
begin
yeah,
with?
right.
Like that's always been the running joke. Like we solve the world's problems, but then we drink and we forget how we did it. That's why we hit the record button.
That's right. We can all listen back.
Yeah.
Be like, what was I talking about? Question for the audience: what questions are you wrestling with now? And this is a great thing, a good way to me for me to reframe this going forward. Sometimes is she can give an example. She says her husband plans to retire in 5 years. He even has a date and a countdown. I'm not sure what I plan to do, but it's not to retire, that's for sure. So that's the conversation. What the fuck is next in Dimmick land? And that's what she said, like, you know, the "we'll solve your problems" type thing. But I think this is a comment there that, yeah, we have, I can't give Ann advice on what's next in Dimmick land. But I think that as you look forward to that, I mean, that's a 5-year plan type of a question, right? You know, the 5-year plan, we've talked about it when you're like, you're in an interview and they say, what, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? We've talked about that before on the podcast. This is something I put on there as one of the last comments from today's post on the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook is when you have a family, when you're with someone, whatever it might be, you have a plan, they have a plan. That's a tough one. You know what I mean? You know, like my girlfriend, Kristen, she's just now starting a new job here in a few weeks. And we talk about things about the future and stuff like that. And there's a lot of moving parts there. You know, what her 5-year plan individually and my 5-year plan individually, they are different of what we want to do with our life individually. But there's also the couple side of it. You know, how do those coincide? Can they coincide? You know, like with something like this, it's, you know, they've been together for, it's over 20 years. I know, I forget how long. I don't know if you remember, Nate, but I know they've been over 20 years.
Yeah.
Well over. And I look at that kind of a comment there is that you don't know. You know, if someone's on a certain path and you want them to do well, but when they say they're going to retire, now all of a sudden that day-to-day life is going to look a lot different when your partner is retired or doing something else. Say your partner has to travel, like, you know, Mike, you know, Marissa has to, I say it not in a negative way, but she has to deal with your job is traveling.
Very much so.
It would be great if you were happy and doing something where you were home every night.
Yes.
But that's where I bring this up is that, you know, as life changes and you look at your future and whether it be retirement, whether it be, oh, I got a new job and it's going to take me out of the house a lot more. Those are challenges that I think that people deal with every day, but they don't necessarily look at in this perspective of what about when this changes?
Well, I know,
because if you're always looking at like what's going to, like, what if this changes? You're going to drive yourself nuts. You really are. You're just going to like be looking at, well, what are the problems going to be if something changes? It's like, well, let's enjoy what we have right now, but also if things go well for me on my side or things go well on your side, well, how do we make it work that way? You don't want to constantly focus on the future. You want to enjoy now, obviously.
Yes. There's a couple that comes into the store to do wine tastings, and they're both cigar smokers as well. And one lady was going to retire. Her plan, like, she was going to retire in 5 years, or no, she was going to retire, and her partner was like, "Well, I plan on retiring in 5 years," and they had a conversation, and it came down to, all right. One said, "I'll work another 5 years, so that way then we'll both retire at the same time," and that's what they did. Like the other one's like, "All right, yeah," because otherwise you'd have one person who's going to work every day and the other person's sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. Neither one of them were
Maybe they have a hobby. Hopefully.
cigars and whiskey and wine.
Sure.
Uh,
Start a podcast.
But no, like that was a conversation they had. So, you know, the one that was wanting to retire was like, you know what? Yeah, you want to work for another 5 years and then retire, you know, because there's about a 5-year gap in their ages. So the other one's like, okay, yeah, I'll work another 5 years and then we'll retire together. And they just did that last month, I think, is when they retired. So now their conversations are, all right, cool. What are we going to do together? You know, with retirement. So the one actually had to have hip surgery this month. So they're already looking at,
Sounds like retirement.
yeah. So they're already looking at like next year, like going, you know, picking up golfing, which, yeah, in your 60s, that's a great time to pick up golfing.
I mean, you're not going to go out for the tour or anything like that.
No.
I mean,
No. It's like, do you play from the ladies' tees or the senior tees at that point?
by senior.
Whichever one's the furthest up. But no, I mean, that was, you know, the one was willing to delay, you know, what their plan was in order for, you know, the other one to catch up. So that way then
I get it.
And the idea was that when they both retire, like now we're both happy, able to do what we want. You know, we're even in a better position than, you know, what we would have been had just one of them retired.
Yeah. What do you have, Mike, on that? I brought you into it actually a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be this specific
No, but it's
example, but I think it's a thinker there.
I mean, it's relative to my situation, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if Marissa's watching, but if you're still watching,
She can always listen later.
yeah, well,
Probably in bed.
the question I always kind of wrestle with is how am I going to balance everything? Just kind of, and the reason why I say that is life circumstances, especially like not just for myself, but for us, is a little complex and different than your average family. So like you guys know, I'm divorced with 2 kids who I have 50% of the time. So they're bouncing back and forth from, you know, oh, hi.
Go ahead.
And so just trying to balance like being the best dad I can be, being the best spouse I can be, being the best employee I can be, stuff like that. Because we have the kids every other week. My oldest daughter still lives back home in Chicago, which we just found out the other day. She may actually be moving 30 minutes away from us. So if that happens, that's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
You know, just juggling all that, juggling family, juggling the situation with Rocco, who's still in the NICU, which, by the way, his last extubation is going much better than anybody expected. We're hoping.
It looks great in the pictures, by the way.
Thank you. And so we're hoping that best case scenario, he can come home in 2 months, but there's still that chance that, you know, he may have some special needs and stuff like that. You know, Marissa recently just stopped working due to the family she was nannying for. They moved away. So now it's kind of, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, how am I going to be able to handle everything, not overwhelm myself, which you probably know, just we've talked about things in the past. Like, I'm not someone who like allows myself to get stressed out and freak out, because I know if I put myself in those positions, it's only going to make everything worse.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean it's not a struggle to figure out how is everything going to work between managing the kids. You know, I have my day job where I travel. I also have my side job on the side that I do on the evenings and weekends. You know, how do I find time to do all that? Still be a good dad, still be a good spouse, you know, and obviously everything going on with Rocco, with him coming home when he does, even just balancing, like finding the time, making sure the time is to spend there at the hospital with him. Which granted, like I'm thankful that she sleeps there every single night with him, and which allows me to be able to get the rest that I need. That way I can stay focused on making sure we're all supported and things like that. And I'm thinking about things, you know, I'm 36. Like I'm by no means like that close to retirement, but I'm thinking to myself, at some point I want to do that. You know, there's things I still want to do in life. I know there's things that she wants to do with her life too, as well. You know, she wants to start her own animal sanctuary. She's worked for sanctuary. Her life is basically about the kids, Rocco, and animals. You know, how can I make it to where she can be able to do that? Everyone is supported. Everyone's taken care of. How do we balance the time? All that stuff collectively. Sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, how the hell am I going to do it? To the outside world, everyone probably thinks like, wow, you seem to like really handle it well. Internally,
It goes back to what I was saying about the self-esteem thing. You know, it can come across one way, but then when it comes down to it, you're still alone with your thoughts at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and it's not to say that I like to walk in life with the mindset of I don't like to focus on the problem. I focus on the solution. So whenever I'm come across something, we're in the moment, I don't know what's going to happen, or this could happen, that could happen. I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? And if I don't know what it is, start thinking about what could the solution be? What is the solution? Like, I don't like to dwell on the problems. I don't like to dwell on like whatever the issues are. I know it's nothing but a waste of time.
Yeah.
I focus on what's the solution. What can I do? What can I do right now to help work toward whatever it is, rather than spending the time being stressed out and being agitated, thinking to myself, oh, this sucks. Like, why is this happening? Like, instead of doing that, I think to myself, what can I do? Whatever I can. Start focusing on the solutions, because given the circumstances at any given moment, if I allow this stuff to consume me, everything's going to crash and burn. Everything will. And I can't let that happen.
Yeah. It's like focusing on the future always and not.
Right. But at the same time, like appreciating and being grateful for the life that we have right now, focusing on still trying to enjoy the life that we have in front of us, knowing that there's challenges, knowing that there's obstacles to get around. We're going to be able to get through them no matter what. Doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. You can plan for everything to a T as best you can, but anything could change at any moment. But know that everything is going to work out. Just focus on what you can do and focus on the solutions, not the problem.
No, that's great. That's really good. I kind of will piggyback off of both you guys. I mean, with this is a good problem to have. I mean,
I'm curious about this situation though. I'm just when I'm reading this, which is not sure what I plan to do, but it's not retire, that's for sure. I'm actually like, if someone wants to retire, the same thing kind of goes like if one person wants to work and the other one doesn't, like, is one person okay with it or not? I mean, I'm just kind of curious, like, so is there, how I would approach this conversation is just to be honest about whatever the situation is, be honest about how you feel about it. Like,
communicate, right?
Like, communicate about it and then figure out what can we do? Like, what do we do? What can we do?
I mean, if, in this situation, or like in this specific situation, we don't necessarily know what their day-to-day life is, but I mean, your things will change, right?
Right.
Like if he were to retire and she wants to stay active, not to retire, that's for sure. Well, we all know that 5 years ago, we didn't necessarily know where we're going to be today. So 5 years from today, they might have another conversation where if she is able to necessarily not have to work for income level, you know what I mean? If they were able to financially, he retires, has a great retirement, whatever, and financially they are good. I know they have the son that's in, I think, college now. I think that's the only child they have. I
think they're empty nesters.
So, I mean, not to retire, but that doesn't necessarily, like, retiring doesn't mean that you
stop living.
Just stop. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm going to travel the world. Now, some people want to do that. Some people want to just like get an
RV and go out west.
Yeah. Shannon. But, it's not, retirement doesn't look the same to everyone. Working doesn't look the same to everyone. There's things you can do. And God, we live in a time now where we all know that you can stay active and you can keep working in a sense and not necessarily be tied down to an office or a desk, right? I mean, this is something that we have the opportunity now that it's, yes, it looks different for everyone, whether it be retirement or working, but having that, I think this is a good problem to have. Like I said, I mean, if one person in the relationship can take a step back from the day-to-day grind, that can be a huge pro. That can be a huge benefit to the relationship. It's not like, Nate, you were saying like, oh, the other like that scenario you're given, the person that retires is going to sit at home and twiddle their thumbs. No, I don't think there needs to be a level of resentment there. The person that's still working, especially in this situation, the way that she worded that is that, she just knows she doesn't want to retire. That's for sure. I mean, that's pretty.
Well, I think part of the reason that she doesn't plan on retiring. Like, Ann loves what she does most of the time.
And that's good. I mean, you can, and like I said, 5 years from now, whatever you're doing can translate into a level of enjoyment, but at a different capacity, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing that you can do. So I think that I like what you said, Mike, with, having to communicate about this, have the conversations. And the conversation today is going to be different than 2 years, 4 years, and especially in this scenario, 5 years from now. That's great for them to have a goal, because the spouse in this situation, when you don't have to go into work, what they're doing now to get to that retirement, now all of a sudden when they retire, like I said, it doesn't look the same for everyone, but I mean, they could now say, well, I want to do this now. Because I don't have to, but that means I want to do this.
Yeah.
Where she looks at, like you said, Nate, she loves what she's doing. So like now maybe she keeps working and he's totally fine with that.
Right.
Because he wants to spend his time doing other things, and then they still end up at the end of the day together, and they enjoy their life together.
Yeah.
There's just no right answer to this type
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. Like I said, there's way too many variables, and every situation is completely different. But like, I can kind of piggyback off of what you were saying. Sometimes it can be a pro, to have only one. Like our situation currently too, as well, is with Marissa just recently losing her job due to the family moving away. I remember this, like there's been for months, and not going to dive into like all the details as to why, but like she was very overwhelmed having to deal with everything that she had to deal with that whole entire situation, between like abusing like her personal life and time, not respecting her personal life, not respecting like the circumstances surrounding, like having to make sure like spending enough time with Rocco over at the NICU, making sure she's here for them, being there. And also how, like, for example, when I'm traveling around, like in the weeks that we have the kids and I'm doing more local, like she helps like pick them up, take them, like drop them off, stuff like that, taking them to school, stuff like that. But like she just go like back to back to back. She was getting overwhelmed, not getting sleep, not being able to take care of herself, and overwork. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, sure, like call it financially, like yes, it's a little bit of a hit, which is also why I took on the second gig, because like I want her to be able to have that time to just decompress and reset and take better care of herself, so she can show up as the best version of her for everyone, for Rocco, for me, for the kids, for everyone around her. Like I want that. So to me, that's a pro. Yeah. Does it create a little bit extra stress when it comes like the financial aspect? Of course. But I mean, I've always been a big believer, like money will come and go, but like life only happens once.
Not like that.
Like at any given point, you can always get a different job. You can always do something different. But when it comes to like time, that's the only thing you're never going to get back. And if you're spending your time being miserable, overwhelmed, pissed off, upset, whatever it may be, that's like the most expensive thing in the world you could waste away.
Yeah. And I think with this, it's like if and I don't think that's the scenario here, but people at certain stages of their life, they're just looking forward to the future of, say, retirement, whether it be 5 years or 20 years or whatever it might be, is that, when you're putting away for a 401k or you're saving for retirement some other way, you're saving money. There's enough scenarios there. If all you're doing is focusing on that finish line, and again, you're not enjoying, like in this scenario, hopefully they're going to enjoy the next 5 years. And again, I go back to it. We don't know what 5 years from now is going to look like for any of us. But if you're focusing on that, just that finish line, you might sell yourself short on the day-to-day. We all know enough scenarios and enough people that we've known or heard stories is that as soon as they retired, that's when they started having the health issues. That's as soon, it's like those stories that are very true, that someone's like, oh yeah, they worked and they saved. And then when they were 65, they retired and they were dead at 67.
Yeah.
It's like, seriously, if you didn't enjoy those years leading up to retirement and all you were doing was waiting for that day to retire, so you didn't have to go into the office or go into work and do something.
It's that old adage, the number one killer of old people is retirement.
Their body literally breaks down.
Not commenting on this comment, right? Obviously, we don't want that. But I just think that it's something that if you it's this the like, not to get too like poetic or whatever. It's like the journey getting to that point is really what you should be enjoying.
Yes.
If you have the opportunity to not have to go work and you are now financially sound and you can, hopefully live another at whatever age say it is, and they're not that old, but like if you're like say 65 your retirement nowadays,
Yeah.
you can, whatever it is now, it's 67, 68. By the time we retire, it'll be like 75 or whatever. But
Right.
it's one of those things. As soon as you're able to pull from Social Security in this country, it's great, but that shouldn't be your finish line. You know what I mean? Yeah. People that don't, like we've talked about it before, you don't travel, you don't do things that you enjoy, you don't spend money because all you're doing is saving. It's like, what are you doing with your day to day? You could die tomorrow. You could, this could be it.
Yeah.
So if you did everything and you're just like, no, I'm gonna be disciplined and not enjoy myself until I can be retired, it's like that was a waste of 40 years or whatever it might be.
Like I listened to something the other day when it comes to like appreciating the now. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was like, but the theory behind it was someone worked for years and years and years to finally be able to, what was it? They went to some to have like a vacation home to where they can sit on the porch and sip a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you can't enjoy a cup of coffee now, what would make you think it's going to be any better when
You
you're
might want to
sitting in
change it now. Don't wait.
What's that?
You might want to change it now and not wait.
Yeah, like you got to be able to have happiness now, because tomorrow is not promised. Like you could be working your entire life for a goal you may never actually even get to.
Right.
Like enjoy life for what it is now. Like appreciate the life that you have. Look around. Like I think I did the whole like analogy last time I was on here, where it's like do the test where, look around you, look at everything that's white, then close your eyes and tell me everything you saw that was green.
Yeah.
Right. Like so many people just focus on how far away things are. Like it's never enough. Like you have everything right in front of you if you just choose to look at it that way. Like there's always blessings around you if you choose to look for them. But if you're always looking for the problems and things like that, you're never going to see the opportunities right here.
Absolutely. Closing remarks. Let's round it out here, boys. And everyone else out there.
I think one of the common things that has come up through a lot of the different topics tonight, which again, thanks to the community for being responsive to those, the last,
it's been great.
Yeah. 6 weeks, I think that we've been doing topics from the community. It's been great. I think one of the things that keeps repeating during all the different comment or topics that we've had tonight is putting yourself out there and taking a chance, either on yourself, other people. There's, a lot of us have had failures in our life, and some people will allow that failure to hold them back and prevent them from taking the next opportunity, the next chance. I've admitted multiple times on this show that that's something that, I've dealt with over the last decade. Is even though I wasn't happy doing some of the things I was doing, the fear of failure a second time prevented me from taking that chance. And so it just kept me in a situation that I was unhappy. And it's like, I'd rather be unhappy and stable than happy for a short period of time, or happy without a sense of security. But no, I mean, it's something that's kind of hard to overcome. And eventually you have to get to that stage, kind of like with what Mike talked about with that wrestling tournament. Like at some point you just say, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I've ran away from things in the past. I'm not going to run away from, the next thing that comes up. I'm going to face it head on, or I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to take that challenge on, and who knows what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I come out better on the other side. There's not too many cases where you're going to come out worse than you were.
Physically he was.
Well, but he's fine now.
Yeah, he got better.
Yeah, he got better. But no, like even when I was let go from a previous career, like that was a huge setback for my family. But I was able to, immediately get a job to where, had an additional income coming into the house. It wasn't paying anywhere near what the previous career was, but it was something, and that led to, doing other things, career wise. There was a time there where I was working so many jobs that in a 18-month span, I had 7 total days off in 18 months because I was like, all right, I got to make up for my previous failure. Like, I'm going to just do everything I can in order to be able to provide. And I've had a lot of family members ask me, like, why do you work 2 jobs? Like, why do you work so many hours a week? And it's like, and I always tell them, like, I work like that now, so that way later in life I don't have to.
Sure.
I work what I want to now, so that way later I can work what I want to.
It's good now that you enjoy all those work hours, though, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's come full circle, right?
Yeah. Being able to, because I was never one of those. I was never one of those people that sat there and said, "Oh, darn, it's Monday. Thank God it's Friday." I was never one of those people.
Yeah.
But I never was really someone who necessarily looked forward to Monday. With my job now, like, I actually look forward to going to work. I look forward to doing what it is that I do on a daily basis now in my career. And so that was something that, that first week I came home, Jess immediately saw a change in my demeanor, in my posture, and, how I talked at the house, because I was so much happier being where I was instead of, sitting in my office for 8 hours a day.
Oh, sure.
Staring at a computer screen, watching TV, half the day because I was done with my work by noon and being 5 feet away from the fridge. Like, I'm a lot happier and in a better place now.
Good.
But I took that risk. I left, a Fortune 200 company to work for a small family-owned business, without having, a huge financial impact, negatively.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same. It's like, well, if I'm going to make the same money, we might as well do something that I enjoy. But I don't know if I would have taken that chance had I not had someone as supportive as Jess in my corner.
No, I think you're fortunate for that.
I like that.
I'll say this, my closing remarks, and then Mike, you can go ahead, is that there is I don't know if it's a balance or also just knowing the difference of the mindset of wouldn't it be nice and having goals. I think that having goals for a reason, everything we talked about, this evening, about, even the last one is where you're going to be in 5 years, is like having goals are great. And they are very, very beneficial to have, as long as you know why, what you're, who you are, what's important to you. And then obviously you branch off it, like we talked about, just a summarize of the people that are important to you, whether it be, obviously family, right? Who relies on you. And Mike, your family obviously right now financially relies on you, but also from an emotional and a supportive standpoint. Nate, you were just talking about that situation, is that, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to make a bunch of money doing what you love versus what are my goals? What are my day-to-day? What are my 5-year goals? You're not always going to do what you love, but if you want to do something, if you're not happy with what you're doing to make ends meet or to support the people, like, obviously there's a scale there that I think that you can find yourself, is sometimes you do need to do things because you have to support yourself, support other people. But the mindset purely of wouldn't it be nice is not the same as having goals and figuring out how to reach those goals. Sean Anderson said something really cool here I like, and Mike, you said that you look down at it. It says, isn't that the hardest thing to learn to do? Transfer thought into action And isn't that really courage? And I think that's really what I'm kind of getting at there. He kind of inspired me on these comments here is that, wouldn't it be nice? I hear that all the time. Or the must be nice type of a comment when you see someone doing well financially, or they have a great support system in their family and blah, 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 all that good stuff. Wouldn't it be nice? Oh, that must be nice to. No, it's how do you get there? Figure it out. And also, yes, it would be nice to have, win the lottery and have millions of dollars in the bank. And so the financial side of it's out of the equation because you can afford everything. But the reality for the vast majority, 90% of people, 99% of people really, when you think about it, is that how do you find the balance of doing things that are fulfilling to you and for you, and also balance that with what's actually important and providing for yourself, providing not only finances, but also providing worth, providing that self-esteem that we talked about earlier, providing everything and building yourself up. Is that you can do that and not make millions of dollars necessarily a year. You can do that as long as you're happy. If you have a roof over your head, all the basics, right? The things that we take for granted, especially in this country, is that we have these things, and you think about people that are better off than you in a lot of ways, and you say, oh, wouldn't it be nice? It's like, what's actually important? Is it having, 8 cars and like a 6,000 square foot house? Is that what's really important to you? That's fine. I know plenty of rich people that get divorced and have a shitty life, and they can't see their kids. They can't do, they hit rock bottom in other emotional arenas of their life. But yeah, okay, you hit your goals and now you can afford whatever you want. And on the flip side of that, it's people that have a great home life and they still look at the grass is always greener. That wouldn't it be nice if we made more money? You got to find what's important. And like I said, figure out what your goals are and why, and then you can try to work to accomplish those. But having that mentality of wouldn't it be nice, or I can't wait for retirement, like we just talked about as a topic. It's like, oh man, it'd be great for me to be retired and I don't have to go into my job. Okay, well, Mike, what you said, 36?
Yep.
That's not happening right now. To someone that's out there, not just you, but it's like, figure it the fuck out on how you can actually enjoy your life now, and then create that path to what you think wouldn't it be nice. Change that wouldn't it be nice to goals.
Exactly. 100%. I want to comment off of Sean's comment right here.
Which one?
The one this one right here. So I don't know if I think you saw a few weeks, it was like a month ago, I was sitting outside just kind of reflecting, having my cigar, and I came up with a quote, and I thought it related really, really well to something like this, is how it says, isn't that really courage? And for anybody who's really struggling with wanting to change, but have long lasting change, just remember, it takes courage to build confidence. It takes confidence to build resilience. It takes resilience to build discipline. And with discipline comes consistency. So it takes courage to take that first step forward. And when you take that first step forward, more often than not, you'll start to realize that the things that you once believed aren't actually true, and you're actually capable of more than you actually believe in the moment. And through all of that, you start to build confidence with yourself. And once you have that confidence, you start to become resilient to the things to the challenges that you once had. And the more resilient you become, it starts to turn into discipline, because at that point, you know what the challenges are, you know what the obstacles are, you've already proven to yourself that you can overcome these things. And once you have that discipline, it leads to consistency, and the consistency is the key to long lasting change. And once you've done it once and you prove it to yourself once, who's to say what else you can accomplish? Who's to say what else you can do within your life? But just remember, in those stages, that's when real lasting change happens. And that's the stages that it takes for people to get rid of the entire mindset of thoughts into action. It's just take that step forward. When you take that step forward, it'll build into confidence, it'll build into resilience, then to discipline. And that's when you have the consistency. And that won't just lead you into, for some people, it's trying to get into shape, or having the courage to make a different change. You have to take that first step forward. And once you do that, everything else will build off of it.
Yeah. I like that. Great way to round it out there. Nate, anything else?
Good.
Good. Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you next week. Empty glass. I'll cheers your prime. There's something in it. Then you can't hear it. You hear this. Guys, enjoy the week. We'll see you next week on Wednesday. We got Stephanie from Barrel Craft Spirits on next week, and we'll be trying some new stuff from them. If you guys have any comments or topics you guys want us to talk about in part 2, always reach out to the Bourbon and BS community page or Nate or myself and shoot us your topics, and we can absolutely add them to the list. So appreciate all you guys out there doing this with us every week and supporting us, and also by sharing it. Hope you guys got something out of it. I know I did. Cheers.